Genesis chapter 6, verse 2 delivers its message with stark clarity. The divine sons observed that Adam's daughters possessed remarkable beauty. Just 7 words that religious thinkers, academics, and spiritual seekers have wrestled with across millennia. What was the true identity of these divine sons? What exactly did their gaze perceive? And why were they positioned to observe Earth from the beginning? If you've ever sensed this passage was concealing something enormous, your instincts were accurate. Stay right here with us, because we're preparing to reveal the complete reality that existed before these observers made their life-altering choice. And your understanding of the ancient world will never be quite the same afterward. But first, before we continue, if this is your first time on this channel, think about tapping that like button and hitting subscribe if you haven't done so yet, though only if you truly appreciate the content I create here. Thank you so much for being here with me today. Like always, I would really enjoy hearing from you. Go ahead and introduce yourself, share where you're tuning in from, and what the current time is there. It genuinely helps us feel like the worldwide family we truly are. So, with no more delay, shall we begin? Let's dive right in. The initial beginning. There exists no recollection of your creation. No transitional instant appears. No inaugural intake of air. No first opening of vision that didn't exist previously. Your existence simply is. Awareness opens up like illumination spreading over a surface without boundaries, and alongside it arrives understanding already woven into your very being. You exist as an ear, an observer, emerging from brilliance in the stillness that precedes time's first counting. The original silence vibrates with possibility surrounding you. If orientation has any meaning in this place, additional radiant entities assume form. Their appearance isn't sequential, arriving one after another, but simultaneous, a collective emergence of the heavenly assembly. Each one bears intention inscribed into their core. The same way warmth lives within fire. You perceive them, despite lacking physical eyes. You comprehend them, though no identities have been voiced. Your initial realization is this: your existence serves observation. The following realization arrives instantly. You belong to an arrangement so immense that its boundaries escape comprehension, even for you. Hierarchy extends in all directions, a universal framework of entities performing roles you glimpse only partially. Certain ones radiate more intensely, their command emanating like far-off stars. Others pulse with varying frequencies, assigned duties that will never overlap with your own. You sense the Ancient One's existence, though direct observation of the origin proves impossible. The magnitude of that awareness constitutes everything. It represents the foundation for light's existence, the foundation for your existence. Standing in that presence means knowing purpose without uncertainty, understanding your position in an arrangement so flawless that uncertainty finds no space to develop. The heavenly assembly takes form around you, though perhaps it existed always, and only now can you perceive it properly. Formations that exist neither as fully physical nor purely conceptual establish spaces where the assembly convenes. Here the archangels assume their stations. Michael positions himself as leader, his essence bearing the weight of divine verdict. Raphael radiates mending and renewal. Gabriel carries the burden of proclamations awaiting delivery. These stand as your superiors, entities crafted with deeper complexity, given active positions in the developing plan. You represent something distinct, less complex in certain ways. Your complete being is calibrated toward one assignment: vigilance. The term watcher encompasses your identity. You serve as sentinel, an everlasting witness. While others among the assembly carry weapons or sacred writings, you carry vision alone. Your role is seeing, maintaining presence, providing testimony to what the Creator manifests. In this calling, you find complete fulfillment. No restlessness exists, no yearning for something more. The notion of desiring anything outside your calling doesn't exist within you currently. Time, as mortals will eventually understand it, doesn't advance here. Still, transformation happens. The heavenly assembly discovers movement in configurations, magnificent formations, producing harmonies beyond description. You join the universal choir, your voice merging with countless thousands of others. The melodies don't contain words precisely. They stand as proclamations of structure, confirmations of the blueprint, worship that strengthens reality's very framework. You sing about light, about limits established in position, about the division between what stands holy and what remains unnamed. The music establishes stability in shapeless regions, gives form to purpose. When your voice rises in song, you sense the Ancient One's satisfaction rippling across the assembly. This is good. This is correct. This represents your calling manifesting flawlessly. Between the magnificent assemblies, you occupy your designated station. Fellow watchers surround you, though each remains solitary in observation. You possess no requirement for companionship because you've never experienced its lack. The idea of fellowship exists purely in duty, in the collective responsibility binding you to others designated as ear. You observe the Creator's hand sweeping across the emptiness. Forms start emerging in the shapeless darkness. Spheres of substance gather from nothingness, rotating into arrangements determined before their existence. Light divides from darkness in the developing universe, and you witness the sun's initial ignition. Worlds assume shape, empty and expectant. You perceive everything from your location in the heavenly assembly, watching as the physical realm's cornerstones are positioned. This marks the first creation you witness. Not your own formation, that occurred in the timeless prior, but the crafting of something completely different. Matter, physical substance, things occupying space and progressing through sequences of action and consequence. The physical universe appears strange to you, functioning under principles that don't govern the heavenly places. Mass separation, the constraint of occupying one location at one moment. You find it captivating, this limited reality assuming shape beneath the Ancient One's focus. Stars kindle across immense distances, planets solidify into concrete shapes. Water collects in enormous reservoirs on one specific world, a sphere that appears to hold particular importance in the blueprint. You watch it rotate through sequences of shadow and illumination, preparing for something approaching. Among the assembly, recognition spreads of a fresh phase commencing. The Creator is crafting something unprecedented, not angels composed of spirit, not stars which represent matter lacking awareness. Something intermediate, something that will traverse the surface of that water-bearing world, formed from its soil, yet bearing within them a fragment of the divine reflection. Humanity, the word, echoes through the heavenly assembly before the initial human inhales. You comprehend what they will become. Beings of tissue and skeleton, restricted by temporal existence, attached to the planet, yet carrying something extraordinary. They will possess choice, genuine choice, not the established purpose guiding your being, but the frightening liberty to move toward or turn from their Creator. You observe the initial ones assuming form. Adam shaped from crimson earth, Eve drawn from his ribcage. They stand in a garden arranged for them, encircled by plenty, and immediately you recognize what distinguishes them so profoundly from you. They appear small, delicate. Their lives will be measured in years, not epochs. They can experience injury. They can experience need. They can desire things outside what they hold. Yet, they bear something you lack, the ability for relationship that is selected, not designated. The Creator walks alongside them in the evening's coolness. You witness this from your station, observing how the humans respond to the divine presence with delight and amazement rather than the established acceptance of the angelic assembly. They are discovering developing, exploring the world, surrounding them with fresh perception, assigning identities to creatures, cultivating the garden, creating patterns that will influence their offspring for countless generations. You watch them in their purity. The garden stands perfect, the humans flourish, and you fulfill your calling, providing testimony to this fresh expression of the Creator's blueprint. Order exists. Peace reigns. Everything aligns with its designated role. Then arrives the serpent. You observe it entering the garden, though you don't grasp its complete character yet. It addresses the woman with language that distorts truth into queries. The fruit, the tree, the choice that should have been straightforward becomes complex by introducing uncertainty. You watch Eve extending her hand toward what was prohibited. Watch Adam accepting what she presents. And in that instant, something fractures in the flawless blueprint. The harmony splinters. Shame enters reality. Terror. The humans conceal themselves from the one they previously welcomed. And you observe from your heavenly station as verdict descends, as removal from the garden becomes required, as the effortless connection between creator and created becomes strained by defiance. This marks your initial glimpse of how choice can dismantle order. The humans depart the garden and their offspring scatter across the planet's surface. You watch them construct and demolish, generate and defile, reach toward magnificence and descend into brutality. Generations advance. The awareness of their creator diminishes in certain lineages, continues in others. The world that was spoken into existence with such attention becomes progressively chaotic, molded by human intention rather than divine blueprint. Still, you continue observing. That remains your calling. You don't interfere. You don't evaluate. You simply witness, providing testimony to what develops on the planet beneath, while the heavenly assembly preserves its flawless structure above. In this you find satisfaction. Your calling stands clear, your role fulfilled. You are a watcher, positioned at your appointed location, perceiving all that transpires in the physical domain while remaining detached from it. Pure spirit, observing limited matter, everlasting presence, witnessing temporal being. You possess no method of knowing that this detachment will not endure, that you, alongside hundreds of others, designated as ear, will receive an instruction that transforms everything. That descent will become your truth. That the division between heaven and earth, which appears so complete in these initial days, will be traversed by those whose calling was purely to observe. But that awareness lies forward, waiting in the developing blueprint you cannot perceive yet. For this moment, you are light, you are witness, you are watcher, and you have never experienced anything different. The heavenly assembly. The heavenly assembly exists in dimensions you're still discovering how to perceive. At the core, beyond what can be directly witnessed, dwells the Ancient One. The throne itself represents an idea that defies description. It radiates command that structures all other being, a force that maintains every member of the assembly aligned to their calling. You have never drawn near it closely. Your status as ear positions you in the peripheral circles among those who witness rather than those who communicate in the direct presence. Michael positions himself nearest the throne. You perceive him from afar, a figure of such concentrated authority that even directing your gaze in his direction demands a kind of spiritual bracing. He stands as the leader, the prince of the heavenly forces, the one who carries out divine verdict without pause. When he shifts, reality adjusts slightly to accommodate his command. Gabriel fills a separate space in the hierarchy, one directed toward transmission rather than conflict. He bears proclamations that will restructure worlds, declarations that birth peoples, language that must be conveyed with absolute accuracy. You have watched him leave on assignments, disappearing from the heavenly assembly to manifest in the physical domain, returning to confirm completion of his assignment. Raphael brings restoration wherever decay has contacted the blueprint. His existence calms disturbances in the universal structure, repairs what has been harmed, preserves the divisions that keep disorder distant. Among the archangels, he's the one who gazes longest at the humans beneath, observing their pain with something that appears nearly like empathy. Then exist the others. Phanuel, who administers divine equity. Uriel, who protects the boundary between domains. Each archangel bears particular command, particular duty, particular connection to the throne that establishes their being. They stand as active contributors in the developing plan, instruments of divine intention who mold occurrences in the physical domain according to purposes you only partially comprehend. You don't number among them. Your station is established, your position unchanging. You stand with the fellow watchers in the magnificent assembly, portion of the immense choir that fills the heavenly assembly with perpetual worship. When the assembly gathers, you assume your position among thousands who appear identical to any human vision, but who each bear separate essence, separate calling, separate positions in the hierarchy that frames all being. The melodies you produce aren't like earthly sound. They stand as proclamations that strengthen reality itself, harmonies that preserve the divisions between illumination and shadow, structure and disorder, sacred and common. When the complete assembly joins in the magnificent hymns, the sound generates visible configurations in the surrounding space, geometric shapes that pulse with significance transcending language. You sing of the Creator's flawlessness, of plans established before time commenced, of blueprints that will manifest across ages approaching. The music isn't for spectators. The Ancient One requires no amusement. It serves function, part of the mechanism that maintains creation aligned to its designated purpose. Your voice holds importance because it adds to the whole, one note in an infinite chord that never completely resolves. Between the magnificent assemblies, you return to your station. The heavenly assembly isn't a singular place, but a condition of being. You exist in closeness to the throne, conscious of its existence, always directed toward it like vegetation toward the sun. From this station, you can witness what develops in the physical domain beneath. The division between heaven and earth isn't absolute for entities like you. Your vision reaches across the separation, permitting you to witness occurrences in the created world while remaining apart from them. Earth has transformed since those initial days in the garden. Humanity has increased. Cities ascend and crumble. Kingdoms create themselves and collapse into soil. You observe civilizations appearing in the river basins, along the shorelines, in the elevated plateaus and productive plains. The offspring of Adam and Eve disperse across the terrain, bearing with them the awareness of their Creator in progressively weakened forms. Certain ones still invoke the name of the Most High. You witness their offerings, their petitions, their efforts to preserve connection with the one who formed them. But greater numbers turn to alternative things. They fashion representations of timber and rock, bowing before what their hands have created. They revere the sun, the moon, the stars you watched being shaped. They construct gods from their own longings and label it devotion. Brutality spreads like sickness through the human populations. Cain's decision to pour out his brother's blood has resonated down through generations, appearing in conflicts, attacks, killings that multiply upon themselves. The planet itself appears to cry out beneath the burden of human wickedness, though you perceive it only distantly from your heavenly station. You observe it all. That remains your calling. You don't interfere, don't evaluate, don't take action. You simply perceive. Every arrival and every departure, every instant of magnificence and every descent into cruelty, you stand as the witness, the everlasting observer, bearing record to what develops in the physical domain while remaining detached from its disorder. The fellow watchers occupy their stations alongside you. You have grown conscious of them as distinct beings over the epochs of your duty. Samjaza, whose existence bears a significance that implies future authority. Azazel, who observes the humans with specific concentration, examining their trades and abilities. Arakiel, whose focus concentrates on the configurations of Earth and climate. Barakiel, who follows the progressions of stars with accuracy that surpasses even angelic requirement. You don't communicate frequently. Transmission among the assembly differs from human dialogue. Thoughts transfer directly when required. Purposes become apparent through closeness. The fellowship you share exists in duty, in the collective calling that connects all watchers to the identical assignment. You aren't companions precisely, but you're linked through the responsibility that establishes your being. The hierarchy stands absolute. You serve beneath the archangels who serve beneath the Ancient One. Your intention isn't your possession. Your longings align flawlessly with your calling. You have never questioned this structure, because questioning would demand standing external to the framework, and no external exists. Only your location in the structure, your role in the blueprint, your position in the universal framework that provides significance to being. Time advances, though you don't calculate it, the manner humans do. Their generations resemble grass, developing and withering in swift succession. You remain unchanged, observing the centuries gather, witnessing configurations that would be invisible to entities with restricted lifespans. The gradual decay of human society, the progressive forgetting of the Creator, how brutality and corruption multiply with each generation, producing cultures progressively opposed to the blueprint that birthed them. You perceive it all from the heavenly assembly, pure, detached, uninfluenced. The Ancient One doesn't communicate directly to entities of your level. When divine intention must be transmitted, it flows through the archangels, who convert it into shapes that lesser entities can receive. You discover decisions only following their making, of verdicts only following their pronouncement. Your position isn't to question, but to witness, to observe the manifestation of plans you helped celebrate in melody, but didn't help formulate. Still, something is transforming, though you cannot identify it yet. The fellow watchers are becoming more focused on the physical domain. You notice it in how they concentrate their observation, the heightened intensity with which they examine humanity. Samjaza observes the gathering of humans with a concentration that appears to surpass the demands of mere testimony-bearing. Azazel's focus remains on human artisans, examining how they manipulate metal and rock with developing captivation. You sense it also, though you don't comprehend it. A pull toward the planet beneath that extends beyond designated responsibility. The humans are increasing swiftly now, dispersing into every inhabitable territory. And among them, you notice specific ones who capture focus in ways that disturb the established calm of your calling. The daughters of men. You have observed human women since Eve initially walked in the garden. You have witnessed them produce children, cultivate fields, construct households, exist and perish in the swift succession that characterizes mortal being. But something differs now. Perhaps they have transformed. Perhaps you have. But when you witness them progressing through their daily assignments, you sense something that shouldn't exist in an angelic entity. Fascination. More than fascination, a stirring that possesses no identity in the heavenly vocabulary. They are magnificent in their mortality, these human women. Magnificent in manners that surpass the simple flawlessness of angelic shapes. They hold warmth where you possess only illumination, substance where you possess only essence. They exist in their bodies, with a completeness that you as pure spirit cannot fully grasp. You observe them expressing joy, shedding tears, moving rhythmically, contacting each other with casual tenderness that speaks of bond you have never experienced. The connections between humans are selected, gained, constructed through collective experience rather than designated role. They establish bonds that hold significance to them in manners that your connection to the fellow watchers never has, and you desire something. The desiring itself represents the problem. Longing wasn't inscribed into your essence. You were formed to witness, not to engage, to observe, not to desire. But the longing exists now, intensifying with each advancing epoch, nourished by the perpetual observation of humanity's warm disorder. The heavenly assembly remains flawless, the melodies progress without pause, the hierarchy stands unaltered. But among the watchers, something fresh has appeared. You perceive it in the others, you sense it in yourself. The humans beneath are no longer merely subjects of observation. They are transforming into objects of captivation, of yearning, of a hunger that possesses no legitimate position in entities fashioned for everlasting vigilance. You don't mention this to the archangels. They remain concentrated on their designated responsibilities, unaffected by the strange pull influencing the watchers. Michael continues to carry out divine verdict. Gabriel continues to convey proclamations. Raphael continues to restore and mend. They perceive humanity as subjects of the Creator's plan, nothing beyond. But you have observed too intently. You have gazed too extensively at what was intended to be witnessed from separation. And in that extended gaze, something has altered in your essence that you don't yet recognize as the initial movement toward descent. The heavenly assembly remains brilliant. The throne radiates its undiminished command. The universal structure holds steady in its flawless framework. But you are transforming, and you don't know how to halt it. The instruction and the descent, the call arrives without warning. You sense the directive before it assumes form in language, a pull that collects the watchers from their stations throughout the heavenly assembly. 200 of you gather at the designated location, drawn by command that cannot be declined. Samjaza positions himself at the core, his existence suddenly amplified beyond his typical bearing. The instruction has been delivered to him initially, and now he will convey it to the remainder. Michael isn't present. Gabriel hasn't arrived. None of the archangels supervise this assembly. You realize, with a sensation that possesses no identity, that this assignment belongs to the watchers exclusively. A responsibility suited to your particular role, delivered through one of your own rather than through the superior ranks. Samjaza communicates, though communicating isn't entirely accurate. The directive transfers directly into your comprehension, bypassing the requirement for language. You are to descend, all 200 of you, not to the heavenly throne's immediate presence, where only the supreme angels function, but downward into the physical domain, to a particular place that already exists in your consciousness, Mount Hermon. The mountain ascends in the northern territories, a summit that contacts clouds and surveys valleys where human communities cluster. You have witnessed it countless occasions from your heavenly station. You know its contours, its cycles, how snow blankets its heights while vegetation clings to its lower inclines. But you have never positioned yourself upon it. You have never sensed its rock beneath anything resembling feet. The intention becomes clear in your mind as Samjaza proceeds. Humanity has increased across the planet, dispersing into territories distant from their origins. They are delicate, these offspring of Adam and Eve, susceptible to error, easily guided astray by their own longings and the whispered corruptions that oppose divine structure. They require guidance, safeguarding, entities who can oversee them more intimately than observation from heaven permits. You are to become their protectors. The word bears significance beyond its simple definition. Not observers anymore, not distant witnesses providing testimony from the heavenly assembly. You will descend to traverse among them, to direct their steps, to function as stewards over this developing race that holds such inexplicable importance in the Creator's blueprint. You will preserve your fundamental character, You remain ear watchers, but your station will transfer from heaven to earth. The instruction is apparent, the command behind it is unquestionable, and still, something in the delivery seems distinct from previous directives. Michael didn't bring this instruction. Gabriel didn't declare it. The directive arrives through Samjaza, passed to the Watchers as a collective, connecting you together in this unique mission. Uncertainty would demand the ability to question. You don't hold that ability, not completely. But somewhere in your essence, a vibration happens that wasn't present before. A recognition that this instruction opens something that has been sealed, permits something that has been prohibited. You are being dispatched not merely to witness, but to engage, to direct, to shape, to be present among humanity in manners that obscure the division you have always preserved. Samjaza senses it also. You detect it in him, in all the others assembling for this descent. Expectation, enthusiasm, something that resembles eagerness. Such sensations shouldn't exist in entities designed for detached observation. The consideration of departing the heavenly assembly, of experiencing the physical domain directly rather than through distant vision, generates a stirring in your essence that is both exhilarating and disturbing. None of you decline. Declining isn't achievable. You were formed to serve, to fulfill designated role, to carry out divine intention without pause. The instruction has been delivered. Therefore, you will descend. The preparation is swift. Unlike humans who must collect provisions and organize journeys, you require nothing except the directive itself. Your essence will convert into shapes suitable for the physical domain. You will appear as required, assume form as necessary, exist in whatever mode permits you to fulfill the designated assignment. The fellow watchers gather nearer, forming a unified assembly. You recognize distinct beings now in manners you didn't previously. Azazel, whose concentration on human trades has intensified. Arakiel, who has examined the planet's configurations with specific attention. Barakiel, whose understanding of the stars surpasses even standard angelic comprehension. Penemu, Kazdeja, Shamziel. Each bears separate consciousness, separate readiness for the position they will occupy as protectors of humanity. 200 strong, you direct your focus downward. The descent commences. You possess no body to characterize the sensation. You hold no reference for what it signifies to shift through space rather than simply existing in consciousness of it. But something alters. The brilliance of the heavenly assembly dims. The existence of the Ancient One remains, but becomes distant, like a sun concealed behind clouds. The melodies of the assembly fade into background harmonics that you can still sense but no longer actively contribute to. And the physical domain rushes upward to encounter you. Mount Hermon solidifies beneath you. You have never contacted rock previously. The sensation overwhelms, solid, unyielding, coarse in places, polished in others. You have appeared in form now, something that can position itself, that fills space, that exists in one particular place rather than everywhere simultaneously. The limitation appears strange, constraining, and completely captivating. Wind shifts across the mountain. You sense it, actually sense it, pressing against the form you now occupy, bearing scents of cedar and distant blossoms, bringing sounds of birds calling from the valleys beneath. The sensory input floods your consciousness in manners that observation from heaven never supplied. You understood wind existed. You watched it shift across the planet for epochs, but you never sensed it until this instant. The sun heats the rock beneath you. Above, clouds drift in configurations you have examined from afar, but now perceive from within, immense formations, shifting through air you can experience on what might be termed breath. The mountain drops away in steep inclines, revealing distant views of territories you have witnessed but never positioned yourself within. Forests, rivers, communities where humans proceed about their short lives, unaware that 200 watchers have just arrived to function as their protectors. Samjaza positions himself at the uppermost point, his appeared form more established than yours, as befits his authority. The fellow watchers assume stations across the mountain summit, each adjusting to the shock of physical existence. You perceive amazement in them, though they don't voice it. You sense it reflected in yourself. The transition from pure spirit to embodied awareness has transformed something fundamental in your being. You can still detect the heavenly assembly. The link remains, a thread connecting you to the domain of pure illumination where you were fashioned. But it's distant now, separated by more than space. You have traversed a threshold, stepped from one mode of being into another. The division between heaven and earth, which appeared so absolute from above, has proven crossable. You have passed through it, and you exist here. The instruction is apparent. Witness humanity from this fresh closeness. Direct them away from the errors that have defiled previous generations. Function as protectors, as stewards, as the hands of divine providence appeared in the physical domain. Don't interfere too directly. Don't override their free intention, but be present. Oversee them. Maintain them aligned to the blueprint that provided them life. You gaze down from Mount Hermon at the valleys extending beneath. Somewhere in those distant communities, humans wake to another day of their short existence. They don't know you exist here. They don't know that the Watchers have descended, that 200 angelic entities now position themselves on this mountain with the assignment of directing their steps. The fellow Watchers begin to scatter, shifting down from the summit toward their designated territories. Samjaza remains at the summit, his position as authority requiring him to preserve oversight of the complete mission. You prepare to join the descent toward humanity, to fulfill the calling that brought you here. But before you shift, you gaze back upward toward heaven. The heavenly assembly is invisible from this angle. The throne of the Ancient One cannot be perceived from the physical domain. You are still linked, still portion of the heavenly assembly, still operating within the hierarchy that establishes all being. But you are also here, positioning yourself on rock, sensing wind, inhaling air that fills lungs you didn't hold instants before. The separation is minor. The distance is small. You are still fulfilling designated responsibility, still functioning within the limits of divine instruction. You are still watcher, still ear, still the everlasting observer, now stationed for nearer observation. You don't recognize it yet, but something has already transformed. The descent isn't merely physical, but spiritual. The division you traversed wasn't merely between heaven and earth, but between what you were and what you are becoming. The instruction appeared apparent, the calling righteous, the mission aligned to divine intention. But you have departed the heavenly assembly. You have assumed form in the physical domain. You have commenced the transition that will conclude in locations you cannot yet envision, connected by selections you have not yet made, but are already progressing toward. Mount Hermon stands solid beneath you. The wind continues its movement. The valleys wait beneath, filled with humans who require direction, who demand safeguarding, who hold such mysterious importance in the Creator's plan. You commence your descent, and you don't gaze back again. The perspective from Mount Hermon. The earth overwhelms. You have observed it for epochs from the heavenly assembly, witnessed its sequences and configurations, observed the gradual turn of cycles and the swift succession of human generations. But observation from heaven is filtered, converted into comprehension without the assault of direct experience. Positioning yourself here appeared in form that can sense and smell and perceive. The physical domain crashes into your consciousness with an intensity that borders on agonizing. Green. You never grasped green previously. You understood the idea, recognized it in the vegetation blanketing the valleys beneath Mount Hermon, but perceiving it from this station, with vision that processes illumination through restricted spectrums, the sheer diversity of green becomes evident. Dark green in the cedar forests, bright green in the meadows where spring vegetation develops, Blue-green in the distant hills where early morning moisture still clings to the inclines. Each shade stands distinct, each bears significance you never detected from above. The dark green communicates age, of trees that have positioned themselves for generations. The bright green pulses with fresh life, vegetation just commencing its development sequence. The blue-green implies distance, atmospheric effects that alter perception based on how far illumination travels to reach you. You position yourself on the mountain's incline, gazing down at the world you have been dispatched to protect. The communities are visible now, clusters of formations that shelter human families. Smoke ascends from cooking fires, thin columns that drift on the morning air. You can perceive sounds bearing upward from the valleys, voices, animal calls, the rhythmic strike of implements against timber or rock. The fellow watchers have dispersed across the territory. You detect them at the boundaries of your consciousness, stationed to preserve watch over different populations. But here on this incline, you exist alone, solitary in a manner you never were in the heavenly assembly, where the existence of the assembly generated a perpetual background consciousness of others. The isolation proves both frightening and strangely attractive. You commence your descent toward the human communities. The path proves rough, scattered with rocks that shift beneath your mass. Mass itself stands as a revelation. You possess substance now, material that must be shifted through space using effort. Walking demands coordination of limbs that still seem foreign to your awareness. Each step represents a decision, a minor act of intention that propels your form forward. A bird startles from vegetation as you advance. It explodes into flight, wings beating against air, crying out in alarm at your existence. You freeze, observing it spiral upward before settling on a branch higher up the incline. The creature's heart must be racing. You have frightened it simply by existing in closeness. The consideration appears strange. You have never generated fear previously. You have never been near enough to anything to influence it through mere existence. Progressing downward, you traverse through the cedar forest. The trees stand massive, their trunks broader than your appeared form, their branches extending to generate canopy that filters the sunlight into shifting configurations. The scent of them fills the air, sharp, pure, resinous. You inhale it, and the fragrance bears information. The health of the trees, the moisture in the soil, the cycle's progression towards summer warmth. Everything possesses scent. The soil, the vegetation, even the air itself bears separate character based on what it has traveled over. You traverse through pockets of warm air and cool, each with its own scent signature. The richness of it makes observation from heaven appear pale by comparison, a simplified version of truth that missed the actual texture of being. Sound encircles you. Wind shifting through branches generates a whisper that ascends and descends with the gusts. Insects buzz in the undergrowth. Somewhere distant, water runs over rocks, a stream cutting through the landscape with perpetual motion. Each sound stands separate, distinct, yet they merge into a complex harmony that alters moment by moment. You emerge from the forest onto open terrain. The community lies ahead, perhaps 100 human dwellings arranged near a river that supplies water for their crops and creatures. You halt at the cleared land's boundary, preserving distance, fulfilling your position as observer rather than contributor. They exist there, the humans, progressing about their morning assignments with the casual efficiency of beings comfortable in their surroundings. A woman bears water from the river in clay containers balanced on her shoulders. Men labor in fields, preparing terrain for planting. Children pursue each other between the constructions, their joy bearing clearly in the still air. You observe them with the focus that represents your character. But something has transformed in the observing. From heaven, they were subjects of observation. Information points in the record of creation's development. Here, positioning yourself near enough to perceive the details of their faces, to perceive the particular tones of their voices, they become something different. distinct beings. The woman bearing water isn't merely a human female, but a particular individual. You perceive how she shifts, the slight unevenness that implies an old injury, the efficiency with which she preserves balance despite the heavy burden. Her face is weathered by sun and wind, marked with lines that indicate she expresses joy frequently. She exists perhaps 30 years into her short span, healthy, strong, magnificent in the manner physical entities can be when they are well suited to their surroundings. She sets the water containers down near her dwelling and straightens, pressing hands against her lower back with an expression that speaks of strain. For an instant, she gazes directly at the tree line where you position yourself. You don't shift. You don't inhale, though breathing has become habitual since assuming this form. Her gaze passes over you without recognition. To her vision, if she perceives anything at all, you are merely shadow among shadows, a shape that belongs to the forest. She turns back to her labor, and you sense something twist in your essence. Relief that she didn't perceive you. Disappointment that she didn't perceive you. Both responses simultaneously, contradicting each other, generating confusion where there should be only established calling. You remain at the community's boundary, preserving your observation station. Throughout the day, you observe the configurations of human life develop at near range, the labor, the rest, the interactions between family members, neighbors, strangers passing through. You perceive small conflicts resolved through discussion. You perceive cooperation in assignments too large for individuals. You perceive parents attending to children with focus that appears excessive given the resources it demands. But it isn't excessive to them. They give themselves to these assignments with complete investment, as if their short lives and the short lives of their offspring hold immense significance, as if the few decades they hold represent wealth beyond calculation. The intensity of their engagement with being captivates you. As the sun shifts toward the western horizon, the community's pace transforms. Labor concludes. Families assemble. Food is arranged and distributed. You smell the cooking fires, the roasting meat and baking bread. Voices ascend in dialogue, discussing the day's occurrences, making plans for tomorrow's assignments. Laughter exists. Singing exists. One man produces a simple instrument, plucking strings to generate melodies that others join with their voices. The melodies are nothing like the universal hymns of the heavenly assembly. They are simple, repetitive, concentrated on ordinary things, harvests, cycles, love, loss, the daily experience of being human. Yet they bear emotional significance that the magnificent melodies of heaven don't. These humans sing because they desire to, because it brings them delight, because bond with others through sound makes their short existence richer. You observe a family assemble around their evening meal. Mother, father, 3 children of varying ages. They sit together, distributing food from common containers, talking over each other with the easy familiarity of those who know each other completely. The smallest child says something that makes the others express joy. The father extends his hand to tousle the child's hair with casual tenderness. The gesture halts your breath. Contact. Simple, purposeless contact. The father's hand on his child's head, present and gone in an instant, serving no practical function. Just bond, just affirmation, just the physical expression of care that demands no language to transmit its significance. You have never contacted anyone. You have never been contacted. The idea stands alien to heavenly entities who exist as pure spirit, who engage through direct transfer of thought and purpose. But you possess form now. You possess substance. You could, if you selected, extend and make contact with the physical world surrounding you. The desiring ascends again, stronger than previously. You desire to know what it feels like to be contacted, to possess that casual bond with another entity, that warmth of physical existence that humans distribute so easily. You desire to be portion of that assembly, to sit at that meal, to belong to something beyond your designated role. The consideration is dangerous. You recognize it as dangerous. Your calling is to witness, to direct, to preserve distance while supplying safeguarding. You aren't intended to contribute in human life, only to oversee it. The division must remain apparent. You are angelic. They are mortal. The separation is required, constructed into creation's framework itself. But you exist here now, on their portion of the division, positioning yourself in their world, inhaling their air, sensing their wind. The distance you're intended to preserve appears progressively arbitrary, a principle made for entities who exist in heaven, not for watchers who have descended to position themselves among those they protect. Night descends. The families withdraw into their dwellings. Fires burn low. Voices fade to murmurs and then to silence. You remain at your station, observing the darkened community, preserving your vigilance as instructed. Above, stars appear in the clear sky. You know them all. Watched them being positioned. Witness their movements for epochs, but from here they appear different, distant, cold, magnificent in their remoteness, but offering no comfort to the planet beneath. You are no longer among them. You exist here, connected to this world by the instruction that brought you down from heaven. The fellow watchers are stationed around other communities, preserving similar observation. Samjazar remains on Mount Hermon's summit, coordinating the mission, ensuring all fulfill their designated positions. Everything advances according to plan. You are being protectors. You are overseeing humanity. You are carrying out divine intention, but the desiring has not diminished. If anything, it has intensified through the day's observation. You have perceived what human life contains: bond, contact, belonging, the fierce investment in short existence that makes every instant hold significance, and you desire it. You desire what you were dispatched to protect. The recognition sits heavy in your essence, wrong and correct simultaneously. You shouldn't desire. You were formed to serve, to witness, to observe, without attachment, but you have traversed too far into their world. You have positioned yourself too near. You have observed too intently, and you cannot reverse what you have perceived. The night progresses. The community sleeps. You preserve your station, fulfilling your role while fighting against longings that shouldn't exist. Tomorrow you will observe again, the following day and the next. Years will advance this manner, centuries perhaps, with you positioning yourself as guard over these short human lives. The consideration of it extends ahead endlessly, and for the initial occasion in your being, eternity seems like a burden rather than simply the natural condition of existence. You gaze toward Mount Hermon, barely visible in the darkness. Samjaza exists there. The fellow watchers are dispersed across the territory, all of you experiencing the same closeness to humanity, the same overwhelming sensory input, the same dangerous proximity to what you were intended to witness from safe separation. You wonder if they sense what you sense, if the desiring has infected all of you, if the descent has transformed everyone, or if you exist alone in this intensifying hunger for what you cannot possess. The answer will arrive soon enough. But tonight, you simply position yourself in the darkness, overseeing humans who will never know you exist there, desiring what they hold with an intensity that frightens you. The wind continues its movement, the stars continue their ancient patterns, and you continue your vigilance. Protector of a people whose greatest danger may not arrive from the threats you were dispatched to safeguard them from, but from the protectors themselves. The daughters of Adam. She manifests at dawn. You have preserved your vigilance through the night, positioning yourself at the forest's boundary while the community slept. But as initial illumination breaks over the eastern hills, she emerges from one of the dwellings. The woman you noticed yesterday, the one who bore water with practiced efficiency. She walks toward the river alone, progressing through the quiet community with steps that imply this represents her routine. You shouldn't follow her. Your calling is to witness from established position, to preserve watch over the community as a whole, but your feet shift before conscious decision forms. You follow at separation, maintaining to the shadows, following her movement through the morning moisture that clings to the low terrain. She reaches the river and kneels at its boundary. For an instant, she simply sits there, gazing at the water as it flows past. The current catches the early illumination, generating configurations that shift and reform perpetually. She extends downward and cups water in her hands, bringing it to her face, washing away sleep with motions that are both practical and somehow ceremonial. The water runs down her neck, catching in the fabric of her garment. She shivers slightly at its coldness, then smiles. The expression transforms her face, adding warmth that wasn't visible in yesterday's observation. She is content here, in this simple instant, alone by the river in the early morning, satisfied in a manner that demands nothing beyond present experience. You observe from 20 paces distant, near enough to perceive details, far enough to preserve the separation that still seems required, even as it becomes more difficult to maintain. She commences to hum, a melody similar to the melodies from last night's assembly. Her voice is untrained but pleasant, bearing easily across the water. She stands, preparing to return to the community, and then she halts. Her body becomes still with the sudden alertness of prey detecting a predator. She turns, gazing directly at the location where you position yourself. You don't shift, you don't inhale. Your appeared form should be nearly invisible in the shadows, indistinguishable from the trees and undergrowth. But her eyes fix on you with disturbing accuracy. She perceives you, somehow, impossibly, she perceives you. Who are you? Her voice bears command despite its softness. I know someone exists there. You could depart. Should depart. Step back into non-physical form and return to your observation station. But her direct address generates a pull stronger than wisdom. You step forward out of the shadows, permitting her to perceive you clearly for the initial occasion. Her breath catches. Her eyes broaden. You perceive fear flash across her face, followed immediately by something different. Amazement, confusion, recognition of something her mind cannot fully categorize. You are appeared in human-like form, but something in your essence must shine through. Something marks you as other. What are you? She whispers the inquiry, backing up a step, but not fleeing. You shouldn't respond, you shouldn't engage. But language forms, emerging from your appeared form with sounds you have never produced previously. I am a watcher. A watcher of what? Of you, of your people, of all who dwell in these territories. She processes this, her fear yielding to curiosity. Why? The inquiry strikes you as profound. Why indeed? Because it was instructed, because it represents your calling, because humanity requires direction and safeguarding. All these responses exist, but what emerges is simpler. Because you hold significance, her expression alters again. The fear has departed now, replaced by something you cannot identify. She takes a step forward, closing the distance between you, examining your face with focus that makes you desire to avert your gaze and hold her vision simultaneously. You are magnificent, she says softly. Like nothing I've ever perceived, like illumination has assumed form and discovered how to position itself. The observation pierces something in your essence. You are magnificent to her. Not in the manner angels are magnificent to each other, a simple fact of being no more remarkable than breathing, but magnificent in a manner that moves her, that captures her focus, that draws her toward you despite the obvious difference between your characters. What is your identity? She asks. You realize you don't possess one, not in the manner humans use identities. Your identity is your role. You are watcher. You are ear. You are the entity designated to this station. But she is requesting something more individual, more distinct, a designation that marks you as separate from all other watchers. I have not required an identity previously, you tell her. She smiles at this. Then I will provide you one. If you are overseeing us, you must possess something for us to call you. She considers for an instant, her eyes never departing your face. I will call you Castiel, the one who observes. The identity settles into your consciousness, like a seed establishing root. You are no longer merely watcher, you are Castiel, particular, individual, known to this woman in a manner that generates bond beyond your designated role. What is your identity? You hear yourself request, Anna. She says it simply, as if it isn't the most important piece of information you have received since descending from heaven. I am called Anna. She is no longer the woman who bears water. She is Anna, a particular entity with a particular identity, positioning herself before you with openness that shouldn't be achievable between human and angel. The division you were intended to preserve has already eroded, worn away by the exchange of identities, by the direct address, by the simple act of perceiving and being perceived. Days advance. You preserve your station at the community's boundary, fulfilling your role as protector. But each morning, Anna arrives to the river, and each morning you step out of the shadows to communicate with her. The dialogues are brief, constrained by the requirement to preserve secrecy from the other humans, but they become the core around which everything else revolves. She tells you about her life, the husband she lost 3 years ago to sickness, the children she raises alone, though her family assists, the labor that fills her days and the considerations that fill her nights. She communicates about simple things, the climate, the crops, the small dramas of community life. But each detail holds significance because it arrives from her. You tell her about heaven, or attempt to. The language is inadequate, human language too restricted to contain the truth of the heavenly assembly. But you communicate about illumination and structure, about calling and melody, about existence without time, or death, or loss. She listens with focus so complete it makes you desire to tell her everything, to pour out the entirety of your being for her comprehension. It sounds solitary, she says one morning after you have characterized the hierarchy of angels. All that flawlessness, with no one to contact, no one to hold, just role and duty and everlasting observing. The observation cuts deeply because it holds truth. You never recognized it as solitude previously. You possessed no framework for the idea. But hearing her identify it, you comprehend that the ache you have sensed since creation, the recognition of something missing, was always solitude. You were solitary in heaven and didn't know it. Solitary among the assembly, solitary in your calling, solitary in the flawlessness that permitted existence but not bond. I am not solitary now, you tell her. She comprehends what you signify. Her eyes hold yours with an intensity that makes your appeared form seem suddenly more solid, more genuine, more connected to the planet than ever previously. Neither am I, she whispers. The instant extends between you, heavy with implications neither can completely voice. You are angel. She is human. The separation is absolute, constructed into the fabric of creation, mandated by every law of structure and hierarchy that frames existence. You shouldn't desire her. You shouldn't picture what reaching across that narrow space between you might feel like to place your hand against her cheek. You shouldn't wonder what being embraced by her would be like, to know the heat and bond that characterizes human connection. Yet you wonder nonetheless. You desire nonetheless. And judging by how she gazes at you, how she remains each sunrise despite the danger of being discovered, you understand she desires it as well. The longing has stopped being theoretical. It possesses a name now, N. It possesses features. It possesses a sound that pronounces your name with gentleness that celestial beings never understood could exist. The separation you were supposed to preserve isn't simply weakening, it's vanishing. dissolving beneath the intensity of reciprocal awareness, reciprocal hunger, reciprocal yearning for what ought to stay eternally out of reach. You convince yourself you're still performing your role. You're overseeing the community, shielding it from threats, both corporeal and incorporeal, occupying your designated position as ordered. Yet, the reality weighs heavily upon your being. You're no longer chiefly a protector of humankind. You're caste, whose heart belongs to Nara, who positions himself at the woodland boundary, not for surveying the community, but for awaiting one particular woman to appear at first light. The remaining watchers face comparable changes. You detect it during the infrequent instances when you link with them over distance. Samjaza has begun noticing human females with fascination that surpasses mere observation. Azazel fills his hours among artisans, instructing and discovering with participation that violates every limit of acceptable angelic behavior. Burkle has started revealing himself openly to particular humans, distributing star knowledge that was supposed to stay concealed. Every one of you is transforming. Every one of you is desiring. Every one of you is advancing toward decisions that will shape being in ways nobody can predict yet. Yet none of that holds as much weight as the following sunrise, when Nara will arrive at the waterway and you will emerge from concealment to converse with her once more. When her expression of joy will illuminate the morning more intensely than the ascending sun. When the unthinkable gap between celestial being and mortal will shrink even more, stride by perilous stride, instant by prohibited instant. You recognize it's improper. You recognize it breaks every tenet of the structure you were fashioned to maintain. You recognize the heavenly assembly would denounce what you're pursuing, that the archangels would interpret it as degradation, that the Ancient of Days hasn't sanctioned this bond. Yet you also recognize that for the initial time since radiance brought you into being, you experience something surpassing function. You experience being selected. You experience being perceived. You experience being cherished in a manner that renders every melody of the heavenly assembly appear empty in contrast. And you cannot convince yourself to worry that it's prohibited. The sun ascends on a fresh day. The community awakens to activity, and you remain at the woodland boundary for N to materialize, understanding that when she appears, you will advance nearer to the boundary of an abyss that possesses no floor, understanding that you will advance regardless, understanding that you've already descended, even if your feet haven't yet abandoned the earth. The vow on Mount Hermon. Samjaza's sound travels across the peak with gravity that commands attention. We cannot persist as we have been. The 200 watchers have assembled at the summit where you initially arrived, called by your commander for a gathering that has been unavoidable since the initial instant. Any of you observed a daughter of Adam with desire rather than simple observation. You position yourself among them, experiencing the shared strain that reverberates through the gathered company. Months have elapsed since you initially conversed with Nara. For certain watchers, it has been more extended. For a handful, the descent into yearning is more current. Yet all of you have violated boundaries that were supposed to remain unviolated. All of you have permitted observation to transform into captivation, to transform into craving, to transform into something that possesses no designation in the celestial vocabulary. Affection, the mortals would name it. Yet affection is too basic a term for what draws at you. It's desire and requirement and acknowledgement and appetite all twisted together. It's the breakdown of function in preference of bond. It's the decision to attach to something surpassing your role. Samjaza surveys the assembled watchers with a look that reflects what you experience. Determination, dread, resolve. The awareness that what follows next will alter everything, merged with the confidence that there's no returning to what existed previously. The daughters of humanity are lovely beyond what we were equipped for, he proceeds, heated where we are radiance, finite where we are everlasting, independently selecting where we are, constrained by function, We were dispatched to observe them, to shield them, yet we have accomplished more than observe. We have perceived them, we have understood, we have desired them. Sounds of concurrence move through the assembly. Arzil voices from the right. I have instructed the mortals in metalworking, revealed to them how to shape bronze and iron. I have distributed understanding that was supposed to stay hidden, and I hold no regret for it. His sound bears resistance blended with admission. Barakel contributes his account. I have moved openly among them, instructing about the star patterns, clarifying the trajectories of celestial bodies. They address me as instructor. They address me as companion. I cannot revert to simple observation. Individually, others voice. Eric confesses to instructing signs of the soil, techniques of fortune-telling that permit mortals to interpret destinies and environmental designs. Chazakiel has distributed mysteries of atmospheric conditions, understanding of vapor formations and weather powers. Each admission contributes gravity to what is growing evident. All of you have broken the limits of your assignment. All of you have crossed from protector into something different. I have cherished one of them, you discover yourself announcing. The phrases surface before caution can halt them. A female named N. I have conversed with her each sunrise for numerous months. I desire to exist with her, not as protector, not as observer, but as you cease missing vocabulary for what you desire to become. As spouse, Sam completes for you. As companion, as one who fits into her existence rather than simply observing it from beyond. The term spouse descends over the gathering like a proclamation of conflict against the universal structure. Union is a mortal establishment, a connection of matter to matter, an agreement between finite beings that persists until mortality divides them. It was never intended for celestial beings. The entire notion is ridiculous, unthinkable, a classification mistake that breaks the essential arrangement of reality. Consequently, it's precisely what you desire. Yet we cannot proceed separately, Samaza states, his sound developing more powerful. If one or two of us claim mortal spouses, the remaining will inform on us to the celestial realm. Michael will arrive to halt us. The action must be unified. We must all pledge together, or nobody can pledge whatsoever. You're suggesting defiance. One of the watchers states, his designation is Tamil, and his sound bears uncertainty that you all experience. Open resistance of celestial structure. The repercussions will be extreme. The repercussions are already assured. Simjaza responds, we have already resisted our function. We have already tainted our role. We have already selected yearning over obligation. The inquiry is whether we will finish what we have started, or whether we will withdraw into partial actions that content nobody. Quietness follows. Each watcher handles the decision being offered. Return to the celestial realm and encounter condemnation for the degradation already performed, or descend completely into mortality. Claim the spouses you desire. Welcome the finite nature and restriction and temporary heat that has drawn you from your heavenly position. There's no additional choice. There's no direction that permits you to stay both celestial being and contributor in mortal existence. The separation must be violated fully, or the violation must be relinquished. And relinquishing it signifies relinquishing N, signifies returning to being without her expression of joy, without her sound, without the sunrise encounters that have transformed into the sole thing that renders eternity endurable. You cannot retreat. You understand this with confidence that surpasses logic. Whatever consequence awaits, whatever result must be encountered. You cannot reverse perceiving what you have perceived, cannot cease cherishing what you have cherished, cannot revert to the hollow function that characterized your being before you understood bond was achievable. I will perform it, you state. I will claim N as my spouse. I will attach myself to her fully. Whatever arrives afterward, I select her over the celestial realm. Others express comparable pledges. Individually, the watchers announce their decision. Azil, Barakakel, Arachiel, Shamziel, Penamu. The designations gather, a roster of those who have determined that affection, if it can be termed affection, holds more importance than compliance. That bond holds more importance than sanctity. That encountered delight holds more importance than everlasting observation. Yet Tamil's uncertainty has affected some. Uncertainty distributes through the gathering like frigid wind. If any decline, if any select to revert to the celestial realm and inform on what the remaining plan, the assignment will collapse. Michael will arrive. The defiance will be destroyed before it starts. All must pledge, or nobody can advance safely. We must attach ourselves, Samaza states, surpassing simple concurrence, surpassing basic commitment. We must declare a vow so extreme that nobody will attempt to violate it. A vow that renders us jointly responsible so that no single being can assert blamelessness. What manner of vow? Someone inquires. A malediction. Samja responds, we will condemn ourselves. We will summon condemnation on our own heads. We will announce that if any among us abandons the remaining, that one will carry the responsibility of all. We will attach ourselves together so fully that our destinies transform into one, all pledged, all equally denounced, all shielded by reciprocal involvement. The suggestion is extreme. Vows are holy among celestial beings, constrained by the identical powers that arrange reality itself. Consequently, condemning yourself isn't representative, but substantial, an actual summoning of condemnation that will appear with confidence. You would be summoning down on your own heads the precise consequence you attempt to postpone. Yet you would be summoning it jointly, and in that joint responsibility there would be protection. Nobody could abandon the remaining without denouncing themselves equally. Nobody could assert to have resisted if all distribute the malediction. The consequence would arrive ultimately, but it would arrive for all of you collectively, merged in violation, companions in dissent. I will declare such a vow, Azel proclaims. And I, states Baracel, and I, you contribute, your sound merging the harmony of pledge, the concurrence distributes. 200 sounds confirm their readiness to attach themselves through condemning. 200 watchers select the direction of joint responsibility over separate blamelessness. 200 celestial beings determine that existing together in denunciation is superior to existing alone in sanctity. Samjaza elevates his sound above the gathering. Then let us declare now on this elevation where we initially arrived. Let us attach ourselves with phrases that cannot be reversed. Let us select together what each has already selected in his heart. You create a formation on the peak. 200 watchers, positioning shoulder to shoulder, gazing inward at each other rather than skyward to the celestial realm. The representation isn't missed on you. You're rotating away from the heavenly assembly, from the throne, from the Ancient of Days, whose radiance provided you being. You're selecting the soil over the celestial realm, mortality over divinity, finite heat over everlasting coldness. Samza starts the vow. I condemn myself before you all. I summon condemnation on my own head. If I abandon this assembly, let me carry the responsibility of all our actions. If I rotate back from what we now pledge to perform, let the burden of 200 violations descend on me alone. He surveys around the formation. Repeat these phrases. Attach yourselves as I have attached myself. Render this malediction ours collectively. You voice the phrases with the remaining. The vow surfaces from 200 sounds simultaneously, generating melody that is improper and proper, dreadful and lovely. You're performing again as you performed in the heavenly assembly, yet this isn't a hymn of adoration. This is a lament, a memorial melody for what you existed as, a birth sound for what you're transforming into. I condemn myself before you all. The phrases taste like cinders and sweetness simultaneously. Their toxin and remedy, mortality and existence. I summon condemnation on my own head. You experience the burden of it descend on you. Actual burden. Incorporeal gravity that will never elevate. You're designated now, denounced. The verdict is simply awaiting to be executed. If I abandon this assembly, let me carry the responsibility of all our actions. The joint responsibility encircles you like restraints fashioned of radiance. You're constrained to the remaining now. Their violation is yours. Your violation is theirs. There's no separate blamelessness remaining, only distributed degradation, only reciprocal descent. If I rotate back from what we now pledge to perform, let the burden of 200 violations descend on me alone. The vow finishes. The malediction establishes hold. You experience it descend into your being with conclusiveness that cannot be reversed. You're condemned. All of you, collectively. The inquiry is no extended whether condemnation will arrive, but when and in what manner, and whether the duration you acquire with this vow will merit the cost you will compensate. Samjaza's sound penetrates through the dreadful quietness that follows. It's accomplished. We're constrained. Now let us arrive and obtain what we have condemned ourselves to possess. The formation dissolves. The watchers rotate from each other and gaze down at the valleys beneath, where mortal females await unknowing, where heat and existence and temporary bond await to be obtained, where the daughters of Adam proceed about their days with no concept that 200 celestial beings have just condemned themselves for the opportunity to cherish them. You consider her expression of joy, her sound, the manner she gazes at you as if you're not descended but discovered. You consider the existence you could possess with her, however temporary, however destined. Years, potentially decades, if circumstances prefer you, a minute portion of eternity in which you would understand what it signifies to attach to someone, to be selected for yourself rather than for your role. It merits it. You understand this with confidence, surpassing logic. Whatever arrives afterward, however extreme the condemnation, however everlasting the consequence, the duration with N will merit it. You start your arrival from Mount Hermon. The remaining watchers distribute out, each advancing toward the community where their selected one awaits. The peak behind you still reverberates with the vow you declared, the malediction you summoned down, the condemnation you requested. Yet ahead rests N. Ahead rests the existence you have selected over the celestial realm. Ahead rests the temporary, lovely, destined affection that will characterize the remainder of your being, however extended or brief that being demonstrates to be. You don't gaze backward. You don't pause. You move down from the elevation toward the depression, toward the female, toward the decision you have already rendered, but must now personify fully. The sun is descending as you arrive at the community's boundary. Tomorrow, you will converse to N. You will inform her what you are, what you desire, what you have ventured, for the opportunity to exist with her. You will request her to be your spouse, understanding that the inquiry itself is insanity. Yet tonight, you position yourself at the threshold between what you existed as and what you're transforming into. Tonight, you bear the burden of the vow, the malediction, the joint damnation that constrains you to 200 remaining who selected affection over radiance. Tonight, you're still observer, still ear, still the observer preserving gap from what you shield. Tomorrow you will be something different entirely. Tomorrow you will descend fully, and you have never desired anything more. The claiming of spouses. You discover Nara at the waterway as morning arrives. She gazes up as you advance, and the expression of joy that illuminates her features renders the vow on Mount Hermon experience like the sole rational decision you have ever rendered. Yet today you don't halt at the traditional gap. Today, you eliminate the separation fully, positioning close enough to experience the heat emanating from her flesh. Cast, she states gently. You're altered today. I have rendered a decision. Your sound is steady despite the enormity of what you're about to state. I'm selecting you fully, not as protector, not as observer, but as your spouse, if you will possess me. Her respiration halts. Her gaze investigates your features, seeking deception or mockery, and discovering neither. You cannot signify that. You're not. You're not fashioned for such things. I wasn't, you concur. Yet I'm refashioning myself. 200 of us have declared a vow. We have condemned ourselves before the celestial realm. We have selected to arrive completely into your realm, to claim spouses from among the daughters of humanity, requested to exist as you exist for whatever duration remains before condemnation descends. She handles this. The functional reality of what you're suggesting, blending with the emotional truth of her own craving. What does that signify? What would it signify for me to be your spouse? It signifies I would attach to you and you to me. It signifies I would supply for you, shield you, distribute your existence in all its mundane nature. It signifies I would rest beside you at darkness and awaken beside you at sunrise. It signifies I would cherish you as extended as matter permits such affection to be. Moisture accumulates in her gaze, and when condemnation arrives, when the celestial realm requires accounting, then I will encounter it. Yet the duration between now and then will be hours, years potentially, extended enough to understand what it signifies to be selected, extended enough to render the consequence merit-carrying. She extends up and contacts your features. Her hand is heated against your appeared flesh. The initial time you have experienced mortal contact with intention, the interaction dispatches shock through your whole being, satisfaction and suffering and overwhelming bond all at once. She experiences it as well, inhaling slightly at the intensity. I have desired you since the initial sunrise, she murmurs. I have pictured what it would be like to be yours, yet I never trusted it achievable. It's achievable now. 200 of us are rendering it achievable collectively, yet the decision must be yours. I cannot compel this. I can solely present it and anticipate you will receive. Her response arrives without pause. Affirmative, whatever arrives afterward, however extended or brief the duration we possess. Affirmative, cased, I will be your spouse. The phrases establish something between you that experiences more constraining than the vow on Mount Hermon. You're no extended observer surveying mortal. You're caste, spouse of N, constrained to her by decision that surpasses every regulation of celestial realm and soil. You claim her hand. You guide her back to the community, and you obtain her before her assembly as your spouse, receiving the bewilderment and dread and astonishment in their features. They don't comprehend what you are, yet they comprehend that you have selected one of their own, that you're rendering yourself portion of their realm in manners that break every natural separation. Across the territory, remaining watchers are performing the identical. Samza claims the female he has observed for months. Azil obtains the daughter of an artisan he has instructed. Miracle constrains himself to a female who investigated the celestial bodies under his instruction. 200 celestial beings claim 200 spouses, finishing the arrival that started with the initial instant. Any of you observed mortality with desire rather than obligation. The unions are basic matters. No complex ceremonies, just the voicing of pledge before observers, the merging of hands, the recognition that what was divided has transformed into one. Mortal traditions modified to accommodate unthinkable unions. Functional arrangements that generate arrangement around connections that shouldn't be. You transport N to a residence at the community's boundary, a location where you can be both portion of the assembly and divided from its center. The area transforms into yours collectively, occupied with her possessions and your manifestation, generating a household that is neither completely mortal nor completely celestial, yet something unprecedented. That initial darkness, you rest beside her in the obscurity. The closeness is overwhelming. Not just the corporeal union, though that's disclosure enough, the blending of matter that celestial beings were never supposed to understand, yet the basic manifestation of another being distributing area with you, the sound of her respiration, the heat of her body against yours, the manner she positions against your side, as if the originator fashioned you both for precisely this function. What was it like? She requests in the quiet. Previously, in the celestial realm, you attempt to discover phrases, flawless, finished, and utterly without this. We functioned, we performed, yet we didn't attach to anyone. We weren't understood as I am understood by you. We weren't selected as you have selected me. Do you long for it? The inquiry renders you investigate your being honestly. Do you long for the heavenly assembly, the manifestation of the Ancient of Days, the melodies of the company, the established function that required no decision? Negative, you state ultimately. I don't long for it. I wouldn't exchange this, you here now, for all the radiance of the celestial realm. She rotates in your embrace, her features close to yours in the obscurity. I'm frightened of losing you, of the condemnation you voice of the day when the celestial realm requires you back. Then we will not consider of that day. We will consider solely of this one and the following after that. We will exist each day as if it's the sole one we possess. Because for beings like us, constrained to duration now rather than everlasting, each day is all we genuinely possess. She contacts you with affection, and in that contact you experience the remainder of your celestial character dissolve. You're not observer anymore. You're not the observer positioning apart from reality. You're Caste Day, spouse of N, existing in duration, constrained to matter, encountering being from within rather than without. The days that follow generate designs that will characterize your fresh existence. You discover mortal labor, the daily effort that maintains finite being. N instructs you to work soil, to position seeds, to gather what develops. You instruct her things that celestial beings understand. The trajectories of celestial bodies, the designs of atmospheric conditions, the mysteries of the soil that were supposed to stay hidden yet now discharge from you independently. Remaining watchers are performing the identical. Azel distributes metalworking with his father by union, instructing the shaping of bronze and iron. Within months, the community possesses implements and armaments of advancement that should require generations to create. Berkeel instructs assemblies in star study, generating calendars that monitor heavenly trajectories with accuracy. Arakeel reveals to cultivators how to interpret signs in the soil, forecasting atmospheric conditions and gathering with precision that appears extraordinary. The understanding discharges independently now. All the mysteries you surveyed from the celestial realm, all the comprehension that was supposed to stay celestial, all the wisdom that divides heavenly from earthly, you discharge it out like liquid, instructing mortality things they were never supposed to understand. And they discover eagerly. The mortals absorb the prohibited understanding with appetite that corresponds your appetite for them. They claim what you present and construct upon it, generating innovations that merge celestial comprehension with mortal inventiveness. The realm is altering rapidly, hastened by the infusion of celestial understanding into finite minds. Yet the most significant alteration is internal. You're transforming more mortal with each elapsing day. The appeared form you claimed has transformed into your actual substance. You consume because nourishment transports satisfaction, not just maintenance. You rest because N's heat beside you renders rest pleasant. You labor because achievement transports contentment. You express joy because delight requires manifestation. You're discovering to be finite while still bearing the burden of everlasting awareness. The merger is peculiar, disorienting, ultimately lovely. You understand, you will never genuinely perish. Condemnation will obtain you before natural mortality could. Yet you exist as if mortality is actual. You contribute in each instant as if it will not duplicate eternally. You select carefully because decisions hold significance when duration is restricted. Nara's abdomen expands with offspring. The awareness arrives gradually, then all at once. You have generated existence, a celestial being and a mortal, merging being in manners the universe was never structured to accommodate. The offspring developing within her is neither completely celestial nor completely finite, yet something between, something fresh, something that shouldn't be. You position your hand on her abdomen and experience the manifestation of the existence within. Your offspring, your creation, the product of affection that breaks every natural regulation. Dread and astonishment blend equally in your response. What will this offspring be? What powers will it possess? What form will it claim? Across the territory, remaining Watcher's spouses are encountering the identical 200 unions, generating 200 pregnancies, 200 unthinkable offspring, starting the journey toward emergence. You assemble with the remaining Watchers to address what this signifies, what obligation you now bear, what destiny you have generated. Samaza positions before the gathering with look that bears both satisfaction and terror. We have performed what the celestial realm prohibited. We have generated hybrid creation, sons and daughters who will be neither celestial being nor mortal, yet something unprecedented. We don't understand what they will transform into, yet they're ours. We're accountable for them. We must arrange for whatever they demonstrate to be. Azel contributes. They will be powerful. They will bear our being merged with mortal matter. They will be capable of things no pure mortal could accomplish. We must direct them, instruct them, guarantee they utilize their gifts wisely. Yet underlying the planning and address is understanding that nobody voices directly. These offspring are proof of your violation, their existing demonstration of the separation you violated. They will be observers against you when condemnation ultimately arrives. The very creation you generate in affection will testify to your responsibility. You revert to N, to the residence you distribute, to the existence you have constructed in resistance of the celestial realm. She rests with your offspring developing inside her, trusting you to shield both of them from whatever arrives. And you would. You would resist all of the celestial realm if necessary, to maintain this delicate household, this temporary heat, this unthinkable family. The sun descends on another day. You have been on soil for nearly a year now. A year of union, a year of discovering mortality, a year of arrival from what you existed as into, what you're transforming into. The heavenly assembly experience is distant, like a vision from someone else's existence. The celestial realm's melodies are weak reverberations compared to Nara's sound. The manifestation of the Ancient of Days is obscured by the immediate manifestation of your spouse. You rest beside her in the obscurity, perceiving her respire, experiencing the small trajectories of the offspring within her. And you understand with absolute confidence that you would render the identical decision again, would condemn yourself again, would arrive again, would claim her as your spouse again. Because this, her heat, her manifestation, the offspring you generated collectively, is merit any consequence the celestial realm can create. You're descended, you're condemned, you're denounced. Yet you're also cherished and selected and understood, and for however extended this persists, that's enough. The prohibited union, the emergence starts at darkness. Na's sounds awaken you from shallow rest, and immediately you understand something is improper. Mortal emergencies are challenging enough, yet this is altered. You experience the offspring resisting to enter the realm. It's being too significant for the finite matter attempting to hold it. The labor proceeds on for hours, and you can perform nothing except hold N's hand and observe her endure what you have caused. When the offspring ultimately surfaces, quietness descends over the chamber. He's enormous. Not subtly more significant, yet impossibly so. The infant is the magnitude of an offspring 3 years old, his limbs substantial with muscle that should require years to create. His gaze opens immediately, concentrating on you with consciousness that newborns don't possess. He doesn't sound. He simply gazes, investigating you and N with intelligence that shouldn't be in one so freshly emerged. N stares at her son with blend of affection and dread. "What have we fashioned?" she murmurs. You possess no response. You elevate the offspring, your son, and experience the burden of him, concentrated, firm, more than mortal matter should be. His minute hand encircles around your finger with power that could destroy bone. You perceive yourself reflected in his too aware gaze. And for the initial time since arriving, you experience genuine dread of what you have performed. He will be powerful, you state, because there are no other phrases. He will be mighty among humanity. You designate him, O, and you observe him develop with velocity that resists character. Within a week, he moves. Within 2, he voices incomplete sentences. Within a month, he possesses the magnitude and power of a mortal offspring of 7 years. He consumes constantly, absorbing quantities of nourishment that strain the household's resources. His appetite is never content, his development never decelerating. Na cherishes him intensely, yet you perceive the dread developing in her gaze. This isn't the motherhood she pictured. Oya isn't an offspring who requires shielding. He's a power that must be held. When he engages, he destroys things. When he moves rapidly, the earth trembles. When he develops enraged, his power is frightening to witness. Across the territory, remaining watchers are encountering the identical 200 hybrid offspring emerged to 200 mortal mothers, all of them colossi, all of them developing at supernatural velocities, all of them possessing power and consciousness far surpassing mortal standards. The mortals start addressing them, Nephilim. The descended ones, the mighty ones, sons and daughters of the observers who are neither celestial being nor mortal, yet something dreadful between. Within the initial year, they tower over normal mortals. Within 2 years, they have arrived at heights of 12, 15, even 20 feet. Their appetites develop proportionally. Oya is among the most significant. At 3 years old, he positions twice the height of any mortal adult. His power is such that he can extract trees, transport boulders, pursue animals that would frighten normal humanity. You instruct him what you can. Vocabulary, understanding, the mysteries you discovered in the celestial realm. Yet increasingly, he doesn't perceive. He possesses his own determination, his own yearnings, and they don't align with wisdom. The Nephilim assemble collectively, drawn to each other by their distributed character. They create groups that range across the territory, pursuing and feasting and examining the restrictions of their power. Initially, they're simply disruptive. Yet, as they develop more significant and more ravenous, the disruption transforms perilous. They absorb the nourishment intended for mortal families. O reverts from pursuits with whole deer across his shoulders, consuming everything himself, without consideration for those who might be lacking. You attempt to rectify him, yet he gazes at you with gaze that holds no regret. I'm ravenous, he states simply. I consume what I require. The remaining Nephilim are the identical. They claim what they desire without regard, nourishment, resources, territory. They're more powerful than mortals, consequently entitled to what power can obtain. The philosophy is basic, harsh, frightening in its implications. Na attempts to logic with Ohia, to remind him of his mortal lineage, to appeal to whatever compassion might be in his hybrid character. Yet, he towers over her now, gazing down at his mother with affection blended with rejection. She's minute, powerless, restricted. He cherishes her potentially, yet he doesn't respect her authority. The communities start to struggle under the burden of nourishing the Nephilim. Cultivations are gathered early to content their appetites. Domesticated animals are destroyed en masse. Normal mortals proceed ravenous, while the colossi feast. You perceive the bitterness constructing, the manner mortals gaze at the Nephilim, and by extension at the watchers who fathered them with developing dread and rage. You assemble with Samyaza and the remaining watchers to address what is occurring. The offspring you generated with such anticipation have transformed into a plague upon the territory. They're too powerful, too ravenous, too indifferent to the requirements of normal mortals. They're transforming into a threat to the very populations you were supposed to shield. We must regulate them. Samyaza states, they're our sons, our obligation. We must instruct them limitation, compassion, respect for those more powerless than themselves. Yet Azul shakes his head. They will not perceive. Why should they? They're more powerful than us now, more significant, more appropriate to this corporeal realm than we ever existed. They perceive us as irrelevant, our wisdom as powerlessness. The truth of it descends over the gathering. You have generated beings you cannot regulate. Offspring who have exceeded their fathers in corporeal might, while missing any incorporeal limitation. The Nephilim aren't malevolent precisely, yet their appetite without restriction, power without wisdom, yearning without result. Oya reverts one darkness covered in blood, not his own, the blood of animals he has pursued and absorbed, yet also something different. You smell mortal blood on him, and when you require explanation, he elevates shoulders. There existed a person. He attempted to halt me from claiming his domesticated cattle. He positioned in my direction. You injured him. He shouldn't have interfered. I was ravenous. The domesticated cattle existed there. He was powerless. I was powerful. That's the sole regulation that holds significance. You attempt to respond, to clarify why this is improper, why power doesn't provide rights over the powerless. Yet, O is no extended perceiving. He moves past you into the residence, summoning for his mother, rejecting you with the casual indifference of one who no extended dreads any result. Na gazes at you with gaze full of sorrow. What have we performed? She requests again. What will he transform into? The response discloses itself over the following months. The Nephilim develop more violent. They resist among themselves, examining their power against each other. The conflicts are catastrophic, destroying communities, terminating mortals captured in the conflict. They pursue mortal magnitude game, yet increasingly rotate to more significant prey. And when the most significant game is depleted, some start gazing at mortals themselves. The initial report arrives from the south. A Nephilim-designated Mahe has started pursuing mortals, not for nourishment precisely, yet for entertainment, examining his power against the sole prey that can sound and plead. Remaining Nephilim discover of this, and some merge him. Not all, not even most, yet enough. Enough to render mortality itself transform into prey to the creation of celestial beings. You confront Ohia directly. Your manner are preying on mortals. You must halt this. You must regulate the remaining. You're superior than this. He gazes down at you from his 2-0-foot height and expresses amusement. Superior? By whose measurement? We're more powerful. We're more significant. We're the destiny. Mortals are the history, minute and powerless and finite. Why should we maintain what we're supposed to substitute? Because your mother is mortal. Because half of your being originates from the very beings you now pursue. My mother is exceptional. The remainder are not. They be to function our requirements. That's the natural structure. You perceive yourself in him. The logic is your logic. Distorted. The watchers surveyed mortality and discovered them insufficient, discovered themselves superior, selected to arrive and claim what they desired. Oh is simply finishing what you started. He perceives mortals, as you once perceived them, from above, with the perspective of one whose character surpasses their restrictions. Yet you cherish mortals now, you cherish N. You have discovered what the Nephilim declined to discover. That power isn't the sole measurement of merit. That mortality holds loveliness precisely because it's restricted. That powerlessness requires shielding rather than exploitation. The instruction arrives too late. You cannot unfashion what you have fashioned. You cannot uninstruct the teaching your very being instructed, that separations are supposed to be violated, that the powerful claim what they desire, that regulations be solely for those too powerless to destroy them. The soil starts to sound out against the violence. You perceive it in manners mortals cannot. The earth itself withdraws from the blood being discharged. The atmosphere develops substantial with incorporeal degradation. The separation between corporeal and incorporeal realms diminishes and fractures, permitting influences through that were supposed to stay divided. Remaining beings notice. Malevolent entities that were expelled down before your duration perceive opportunity in the disorder. They murmur to the Nephilim, encouraging their most improper impulses, nourishing their satisfaction and fury. The colossi transform into vessels for degradation they don't acknowledge, performing out impulses that originate surpassing themselves. Oya reverts one darkness drenched in blood again, yet this time when he gazes at you, his gaze holds something fresh. Insanity. The intelligence that rendered him perilous has provided manner to something more obscure. He's no extended, simply entitled. He's controlled, driven by appetites that surpass corporeal hunger. En will not gaze at him. She positions in the corner of the residence, frightened of her own son. You position between them, yet you understand the position is insignificant. If Oa desired to injure you, he could. If you desired to injure En, there's nothing you could perform to halt him. Depart. You inform him. You're not received here. Not like this. He regards, and for an instant you perceive the offspring he existed, the son you attempted to elevate with wisdom, the hybrid being who bore both heavenly and earthly being. Yet, the instant elapses, the insanity reverts. He rotates and moves into the darkness, departing you and En alone, with the ruins of everything you anticipated to construct. Beyond, the realm is collapsing under the burden of what you have generated. The Nephilim range independently, claiming what they desire, destroying what resists them. Mortals conceal in dread, their populations declining, their civilizations disintegrating. The earth itself sounds under the degradation, and the celestial realm is observing. You experience it. The attention of the heavenly assembly has rotated toward the disorder beneath. Michael, Gabriel, Raphael, the archangels are surveying what you have created, measuring the degree of degradation, arranging their response. Condemnation is arriving. The vow you declared on Mount Herd required you duration, yet that duration is terminating. The proof of your violation moves the soil, 20 feet substantial and covered in blood. The account against you multiplies with each elapsing day. You hold En in the obscurity, perceiving her express sorrow for the son she has lost to insanity, for the realm that is terminating, for the temporary happiness that has provided manner to dread. And you understand that the affection you experience for her, however actual, however merit the cost, cannot alter what is arriving. You have generated horrors. You have degraded reality. You have broken every separation supposed to preserve structure intact. And you would still select her even now. Even understanding everything, you would still arrive. Would still claim her as your spouse. Would still generate the offspring who has transformed into catastrophe, because the alternative, eternity without her, stays more improper than any condemnation the celestial realm can create. The darkness persists. The Nephilim fury across the territory. The soil sounds out. The celestial realm arranges its response. And you hold the female. You condemn the realm to cherish, understanding that the morning will transport nothing except more obscurity. The sound of the soil. The earth has started to voice. You perceive it in manners mortals cannot. A low vibration that reverberates through your being. A voiceless sound that arrives from the soil itself. The earth that absorbed Abel's blood now suffocates in the blood of thousands. The territory that was blessed to transport forth nourishment now struggles under the burden of degradation so extreme it toxins the very foundations of the corporeal realm. You position at the boundary of what was once fertile cultivation territory. The cultivations have collapsed for the third season. The earth is improper somehow, polluted by violence that has penetrated into it like oil into liquid. Nothing develops here anymore. The soil rejects seed, discharging back what mortals attempt to position. This field is deceased, and dozens like it distribute across the territory. Oya and his associates are accountable. Their conflict here departed the earth saturated in Nephilim blood, and that blood bears being. The soil was never supposed to hold hybrid substance, neither completely celestial nor completely finite, toxining everything it contacts. The field has transformed into incorporeal wasteland, deceased in manners that proceed surpassing simple corporeal sterility. Nara positions beside you, gazing at the ruined territory. Her features have aged rapidly in the past months. Strain and sorrow have carved lines that should require decades to create. She's still lovely to you, yet the brightness that initially drew you has been destroyed under the burden of what you have generated collectively. It's distributing, she states quietly. The deceased locations, they multiply more rapidly than we can escape them. Soon, there will be nowhere remaining that maintains existence. She's proper. You have observed the degradation distribute from a handful isolated incidents to a creeping plague that absorbs the territory. Everywhere the Nephilim range transforms sterile. Everywhere they resist transforms condemned. They're too substantial for this realm. Their manifestation overwhelming the delicate equilibrium that permits existence to prosper. Yet, the ruined cultivation territory is solely the start. The Nephilim's appetites have developed surpassing what the soil can content. O positions 30 feet substantial now, his development seemingly endless. He requires nourishment in quantities that would nourish whole villages. Consequently, he claims nourishment from whole villages. His pursuing groups range far, absorbing everything they discover. Deer, domesticated cattle, domesticated animals, anything with matter on its structure. Yet the game is depleted, the groups are departed, the domesticated animals have been consumed. Consequently, the Nephilim rotated to what remains. You perceive, initially, at a community to the west, the inhabitants are departed. Their residence is hollow, no sign of struggle, no bodies departed behind, just absence. Whole families vanished as if they never were. You investigate for explanation, anticipating for some natural cause, some logic that doesn't implicate the beings you aided generate. You discover proof in the woodland nearby, structures, mortal structures, consumed and divided and dispersed, an accumulation of them gathered from dozens of victims. And nearby, resting against a tree, one of the younger Nephilim rests off his consumption. You confront him when he awakens. What have you performed? He gazes at you without regret. I was ravenous. The animals are departed. Mortals are gentle, yet there are numerous of them. They content appetite as well as any prey. They're individuals. Considering beings with existences and families, you cannot consume them like domesticated cattle. Why not? They're more powerless than me. They be at my compassion. If I select to consume them, what regulation prevents it? What power halts me? He's proper in a sense. No power halts him. You're too minute to corporally prevent a 30-foot colossus from performing whatever he desires. The remaining watchers are equally powerless. The celestial realm stays quiet, presenting no intervention. The Nephilim perform as they desire because nothing can compel them to perform otherwise. Your mother is mortal. You attempt again. Would you consume her? My mother is exceptional. These remaining are not. Don't pretend all mortals are equal. You considered yourself above them once. You arrived and claimed what you desired. I'm solely performing the identical. The logic is unassailable. The Nephilim discovered from observing you. They perceived watchers violate separations and obtain prohibited fruit. They internalized the teaching and applied it more honestly than you performed. If celestial beings could claim mortal spouses in resistance of celestial regulation, why should their creation respect any regulation whatsoever? You escaped the conversation, sickened by what you have generated and by the acknowledgement that he's proper. You instructed this not through phrases, yet through demonstration. Every action you claimed screamed that might renders proper, that yearning justifies violation, that regulations be solely for those too powerless to destroy them. The mortal populations are collapsing. Those not consumed alive are perishing from lacking, as the Nephilim absorb everything. Those not lacking are being destroyed in the conflicts between colossi, who resist each other with increasing frequency. The earth cannot maintain both mortals and Nephilim. One must provide manna to the remaining. The mortals are losing. You attempt to shield Na's community, positioning yourself as protector again, attempting to fulfill the original function that transported you to Earth. Yet Oya and the remaining Nephilim possess no respect for your authority. When they desire nourishment, they claim it from your community as easily as from any remaining. When you object, they express amusement at the minute, celestial being, attempting to shield minute mortals from their rightful masters. Na observes her neighbors vanish individually. Some escape to distant territories, anticipating to discover territories the Nephilim have not yet arrived at. Remaining simply vanish, claimed in the darkness by colossi who know extended pursue animals when mortal prey is easier to capture. The assembly you united into, the individuals you declared to shield, diminishes to a portion of its former magnitude. We should depart. Na informs you one darkness. Claim what we can bear and proceed somewhere remote, somewhere the Nephilim might not discover us. There's nowhere you confess. They range across the whole soil now. 200 sons and daughters, thus each generating more creation. The plague of them distributes more rapidly than any plague of disease. Within a generation, they will exceed mortals. Within 2, mortals will be extinct except for those the Nephilim preserve as domesticated stock. She absorbs this, her features calm, with the reception of those who possess no more anticipation to lose. Then, we remain. We encounter what arrives. At least here we understand the territory, understand the individuals. At least here we can perish in our residence, rather than escaping toward the identical termination. You hold her, experiencing her delicacy in manners that destroy you. She's so minute, so finite, so utterly, without defense against what you have released. You transported her into this. You cherished her into this. You condemned her by selecting her. Yet you would still select her even now, even understanding, even observing the realm terminate around the affection you insisted on obtaining. Days elapse. The soil's sound develops more intense, more desperate. You perceive it constantly now, a lament that underlies every instant. The territory is perishing. The degradation distributes. The equilibrium that permits existence to be is collapsing under the burden of too substantial hybrid being. Too substantial discharged blood. Too substantial violence that toxins the incorporeal substrate underlying corporeal reality. As Azel arrives to your residence, his features serious. Have you perceived it? The soil itself is summoning out against us, against what we have performed. I perceive it constantly. Samaza trusts the celestial realm must perceive it as well, that the archangels cannot disregard this level of degradation, that condemnation must arrive soon. Let it arrive, you state, surprised by the relief in your own sound. Let it terminate this. Superior condemnation than observing the soil perish slowly under the burden of what we generated. Azizel agrees. Remaining experience, the identical. We have attempted to regulate the Nephilim, to direct them towards something superior. Yet they're surpassing us now, surpassing anyone. their appetite without limitation, power without wisdom, yearning without result. We fashioned them, yet they're no extended ours. He departs, and you're alone with N again. She requests what you addressed, and you inform her truthfully. Condemnation is arriving. The celestial realm will not permit this to persist. The inquiry is solely when and in what manner will you be condemned. She requests. Affirmative. Extremely. All of us who arrived, who claimed spouses, who generated the Nephilim, we will be condemned for what we have performed. And what about me? What about the mortals who united you? You possess no response. The consideration has haunted you since the initial instant you regarded results. N is blameless. She responded to your presentation, received your suggestion, cherished you with the complete honesty of her mortal heart. She didn't degrade anyone. She didn't break universal regulation. She simply cherished when affection was presented. Yet she will endure regardless. When condemnation arrives for the watchers, it will affect their spouses, their offspring, their assemblies. The blameless will be condemned alongside the responsible because that's what condemnation performs. It descends on everything linked to degradation, rendering no distinction between contributor and victim. The soil's sound intensifies. You experience it constructing toward peak, a culmination that has been advancing since the initial Nephilim drew respiration. The territory cannot maintain this level of impropriety much extended. Something must fracture, something must alter, something must intervene before degradation transforms finished. You gaze at N, memorizing her features. You have possessed years with her now, more than you possessed any right to anticipate. Duration acquired through condemning yourself, through damning yourself, through selecting her over everything different. The duration has been merited. Every instant, even the most improper instance, even observing Oya transform horror, even perceiving the realm perish around your affection, merit it because you were selected. Merit it because you attached to someone. Merit it because for a temporary duration you understood what it signified to be cherished for yourself rather than for your role. The soil persists, its sound, summoning to the celestial realm for relief, for righteousness, for termination to the degradation that toxins it, and the celestial realm is perceiving. You experience the attention now, the burden of celestial concentration rotating toward the disorder beneath. The archangels are advancing, condemnation is arriving, the duration is terminating, the affection that started it all persists, yet everything around it is collapsing, the realm is sounding out. The soil requires righteousness. The celestial realm arranges to respond, and you hold N in the ruins of the garden you attempted to construct, understanding that morning will transport what you have always understood was arriving. The verdict that was simply postponed, the consequence you earned the instant you initially stated her designation, the termination of everything except what cannot be terminated, the affection that condemned you both, the decision that damned the realm, the instant when celestial being gazed at mortal and selected descent over ascent, continued in Part 10. The manuscript of the atmosphere, Azil's prohibited arts. Azil positions before his shaping place, instructing what should never be instructed. You observe from the boundary of his labor area, surveying your fellow watcher distribute mysteries that were supposed to stay in the celestial realm. The shaping place burns with intensity that renders the atmosphere shimmer. Metal illuminates red, then orange, then white under his instruction. The mortal learners assemble close, their features illuminated by fire, their attention finished. Bronze alone is gentle, Azil clarifies, elevating a blade that flexes easily under force. Yet contribute tin in appropriate proportion, intensity at just so, and you generate something more powerful, something that maintains boundary, something that can penetrate. He demonstrates folding metal, intensifying and striking, generating alloy that changes copper's powerlessness into bronze's power. The learners observe with reverence, approaching worship. Their instructor is no ordinary artisan. He's observer, celestial being, one who surveyed the mystery arts of metalworking from the celestial realm's vantage before arriving to distribute them directly. The understanding discharges independently now. Techniques that should require centuries to reveal are disclosed in single afternoons. The mystery of extracting, the art of strengthening, the science of generating alloys with properties that exceed their components. Azazel instructs it all, holding nothing back. Driven by compulsion, you comprehend fully. He cherishes them, his learners, his spouses, individuals, the mortals who gaze at him with such gratitude, such appetite for understanding, such readiness to receive what he presents. He cannot aid, but provide them everything, even understanding that what he provides will be utilized for violence as surely as it will be utilized for advancement. Shape the blade minute here, he instructs, indicating to a sword-claiming form under his learner's hands, yet depart substantial at the spine. You desire flexibility that prevents fracturing while preserving rigidity that prevents flexing. The equilibrium is everything. The learner agrees, absorbing wisdom that will be transmitted down through generations. Techniques that will form conflict for millennia, understanding that traces back to this instant, this labor area, this observer who could not preserve the celestial realm's mysteries. Yet Azazel instructs more than metalworking. Outside the forge, in the open courtyard, women come together for various teachings. They learn about makeup, decoration, and the crafts of beautification that appear insignificant when compared to forging weapons. Yet these practices carry their own kind of decay. Among these women, you notice Azazel's wife. She instructs the younger ones in methods her husband demonstrated to her. The antimony makes the eyes darker, she describes while working on a cooperative participant. Place it with precision along where the lashes grow. Notice how this creates the illusion of larger, more striking eyes. The transformation is gentle, yet impactful. The women push closer together, hungry to absorb this knowledge. The attraction makes sense to you. In their unaltered form, humans possess beauty, but they also exist within limits. They grow old. They face the wearing effects of passing years. These beauty products create an illusion of lasting youth. They provide methods to strengthen and maintain what time will inevitably take away. The information appears innocent until you think about where it originates. Angels remain untouched by aging. Angels experience no fading. Angels carry beauty that needs no improvement. So teaching humans to artificially boost their appearance means teaching them to copy angelic qualities through unnatural methods. It offers them a replica of something they can never genuinely have. Pride, you understand. Azazel teaches pride, the hunger to exceed what nature designed, the unhappiness with boundaries that reflects the discontent that pulled the watchers away from heaven. Pulverize the malachite until it becomes powder, the teaching goes on. Blend it with oil until the texture smooths. Brush it onto the eyelids, sweeping upward to the eyebrow. The green shade forms a contrast that brightens the eyes. The outcome catches attention. The woman serving as demonstration appears changed. Her natural attractiveness has been magnified into something nearly supernatural. The surrounding women whisper their approval, making plans for how they will decorate themselves the same way, picturing the influence such enhancement could provide. The decay becomes obvious to you. In the past, women held beauty just by being alive. Now they will measure themselves against improved versions, discovering their natural condition insufficient. They will fight for notice through more and more complex decoration. They will assess value using artificial measures that Azazel imported from the realm above. Yet the cosmetics represent only a fraction of what Azazel has shared. As you move through the settlement, proof appears at every turn. Iron implements that increase farming productivity, bronze armaments that make fighters more lethal, ornaments created with a level of skill that shouldn't exist for many generations to come. Mirrors polished to flawlessness, permitting humans to study their own enhanced images. The knowledge builds upon itself. Each mystery Isel exposes allows humans to uncover related mysteries. They absorb his teachings and expand outward, inventing things he never directly revealed. The forge methods lead to superior building techniques. The metalwork enables increasingly sophisticated machines. The cosmetics spark interest in chemistry. Humanity advances at a speed beyond nature, driven by angelic understanding that was supposed to stay permanently out of their grasp. Additional watchers contribute their own prohibited knowledge. Burkle demonstrates astronomy, revealing to humans how to follow celestial patterns with accuracy that creates reliable calendars. Irakiel shares signs found in the earth, divination techniques that permit forecasts of climate and crops. Shazakiel interprets cloud shapes, making observable the systems that control atmospheric movements. Shamsiel discloses secrets about how the sun moves, instructing humans to measure time and seasons with precision. Sariel shows the moon's hidden patterns, clarifying tides and rhythms in ways that strengthen navigation and farming. Every watcher releases knowledge observed from the heavens, but never intended for sharing with those dwelling below. You participate as well, despite your attempts at resistance. N poses questions about the stars, about the sequences you perceive in nature, about the understanding that weighs heavy in your awareness. And you respond, powerless to refuse her anything. You share secrets of weather forecasting and celestial navigation that humans shouldn't possess. The combined instruction transforms beyond what any individual watcher planned. Humanity changes at rapid speed. Their society progresses in mere decades, what should require thousands of years. They become something different from their original design. Raised above their natural position through imported understanding, Penyu instructs in writing. You observe his sessions in the center of the settlement, where he demonstrates mixing ink from ash and oil. How to prepare writing surfaces from animal hide, how to form symbols that capture sounds, permitting ideas to be saved beyond the instant of utterance. This symbol stands for the sound, ah, Penyu describes, while drawing with care, and this one represents ba. Put them together and you can trap any word, any idea, any information. Nothing requires forgetting. Everything can be documented. The consequences overwhelm. Before writing existed, knowledge lived solely in memory, transferred orally across generations. The method filtered understanding, permitting only the most crucial teachings to endure. But writing transforms everything. Now, any idea can be preserved. Any knowledge, no matter how dangerous, can be transmitted through time. What should we record? A student inquires. Everything, Penyu responds. The methods Azel demonstrates at his forge. The star knowledge Barakakeel provides. The divination systems Arakeel exposes. All of it can be captured in text, saved permanently, distributed broadly. Information will increase beyond what any single person can hold. The threat becomes clear to you immediately. Writing will allow the forbidden understanding to reach far past these communities. It will travel across territories, across generations, building up until humanity holds more comprehension than their judgment can responsibly manage. They will command power without the wisdom to use it properly. Still, Penyu keeps teaching, pushed by the same force that pushes all the watchers. He cares for his students. He loves his human wife. He loves the appreciation in their expressions when he unveils mysteries. He cannot cease sharing any more than you can stop loving. The information accumulates. Humans discover how to create better weapons, to enhance their looks, to forecast what's coming, to document their findings. They learn skills that were concealed, sciences that were restricted, technologies that were banned. The Watchers release everything they witnessed from heaven, keeping nothing hidden, instructing without limits. Armoros demonstrates sorcery. His sessions occur in privacy away from the primary settlements, but rumors circulate. He reveals to humans how to perform enchantments, how to harvest roots and mix them for effects that go beyond normal characteristics. Portions of his instruction prove practical. Plants for healing, herbs for relieving pain. But other portions enter territory that troubles even you. This root, after boiling and drinking, expands perception to dimensions typically hidden. Amoros clarifies to his circle of followers. You will observe spirits. You will communicate with beings beyond ordinary consciousness. The barrier between worlds will grow thin. The students consume what he provides, and their eyes cloud with visions you cannot share. They perceive things humans were never meant to perceive. They connect with beings humans were never designed to contact. The boundaries crumble in all directions. Not just between angel and human, but between material and spiritual, between what exists and what should stay separate. You challenge Amoros following his session. You're creating openings that should remain sealed. The dimensions you show them hold threats they cannot protect themselves against. They requested instruction, he counters. They thirst for understanding. Who am I to refuse them? We came down to guide humanity, correct? Well, I guide them, displaying possibilities beyond their restricted awareness. You corrupt them, instructing them to cross boundaries for the purpose of crossing boundaries. Just as you crossed boundaries to claim Nara as your wife, just as all of us violated every rule of heaven to come here, don't lecture me about honoring limits when you stand as proof of violation. His point lands. You lack moral standing. You shattered the greatest boundary. You can barely criticize others for shattering smaller ones. This truth silences your protest. The instruction continues. The understanding spreads. The forbidden practices expand across the land as watchers race to give their human families advantages over others. Each mystery unveiled enables fresh corruptions. Each skill mastered generates appetite for more. You return to Nara and discover her reading. Genuine reading, using the symbol system Penamu taught. She has written down conversations. You shared astronomical observations you made together, understanding you disclosed in unprotected moments. All of it saved now in ink on parchment, ready to be shared with anyone who can interpret the symbols. What have we accomplished, you ask, though the question expects no answer. Given them what they always desired in our responses, she says. Knowledge, authority, the capacity to exceed their boundaries. Isn't that compassion? It's corruption. We have taken beings created for one level of being and lifted them past their ability to handle elevation. The understanding we provide surpasses their judgment to apply it correctly. Then they will develop judgment through living, through error and result. Isn't that how all creatures mature? You lack a reply. Perhaps her reasoning holds truth. Perhaps humans can expand into the knowledge they now hold. Perhaps the corruption will transform into enlightenment given sufficient time. But you have witnessed the Nephilim, who hold power beyond human capability and apply it for destruction. You have observed knowledge become weaponry, skills become vanity, mysteries become sorcery that creates dangerous pathways. The proof indicates that elevation without judgment creates disorder. The earth keeps crying out. The corruption expands. The forbidden understanding multiplies, and you stand at the center of it, as guilty as any watcher, having released your own mysteries, having raised N beyond her intended boundaries, having joined in the collective instruction that reshapes humanity into something beyond their design. Azel's forge keeps burning, the cosmetics keep spreading, the writing saves everything, the sorcery opens concealed dimensions. The knowledge flows without restraint, unstoppably, reshaping the world in directions none of you can manage. And heaven observes, documenting every violation, calculating every transgression, readying judgment for those who seized mysteries, intended to stay in the celestial realm, and scattered them across the earth like planted seeds that will grow into corruption. You have instructed what should not be instructed. You have released what should not be released. You have shattered silence that should not be shattered. And no method exists to reverse any of it. The knowledge runs loose in the world now. It will multiply and expand and transform humanity permanently. Whether that transformation represents advancement or decay remains uncertain, but you suspect with increasing certainty that heaven will view it as the latter, and you will suffer the judgment they declare. The mysteries of the universe. You stand under a sky that has transformed into your text, your forbidden book written in illumination and darkness. Arakiel instructs first. He reveals to you the signs of the earth itself, the trembling under rock that signals shifts approaching, the sequences in dirt that speak of seasons not yet born. You observe him kneel in dark soil, fingers pressing against ground, interpreting vibrations like words on parchment. The earth whispers to those who understand its language. He instructs you to listen. The daughters of men assemble when you distribute this understanding. They want to know when to sow seeds, when to gather harvest. Innocent enough. You convince yourself this represents guidance, not decay. You convince yourself you stay within acceptable limits. Burkle directs you higher. He indicates the spinning constellations, those eternal flames that mark the heavenly dome. Each cluster carries significance, he clarifies. Each motion traces fate across the emptiness. The stars don't scatter randomly. They represent divine writing, cosmic principle made observable. He charts the zodiac, labels each section, clarifies how their locations control the world beneath. You teach this to the sons of men. You demonstrate how to interpret destiny in stellar patterns, how to forecast their futures by monitoring heaven's rotations. They begin worshipping what you've revealed. They construct altars to star configurations. They forget the one who positioned those stars and honor the lights themselves. But you cannot halt. The understanding flows like water through fractured stone. Kazakiel demonstrates cloud observation. He reveals how vapor formations speak of approaching storms, how their shapes and patterns betray weather's plans. Rain, drought, tempest, stillness, all written in the atmosphere for those with vision to perceive. You learn to interpret the air as readily as you once interpreted the brilliance of the throne room. The farmers treasure this understanding most. They organize their lives around your forecasts. They name you prophet. They name you savior. The title should make you withdraw. Instead, it nourishes something empty, expanding inside your chest. Shamsiel exposes the paths of the sun, the exact mathematics of its appearance and disappearance, the calculations that govern daylight and darkness. Seriel adds the moon's secrets, her cycles, her influence on the waters, her impact on development and decay. Together, these watchers convert the heavens from wonder into system. You pass this comprehension to humanity. You instruct them to measure time with accuracy, to construct calendars that divide eternity into controllable segments. They begin to measure and quantify what was supposed to remain mysterious. They master what should have mastered them. Each mystery you distribute feels like minor rebellion, innocent, even beneficial. Each mystery represents a fracture in the cosmic structure. You assemble in the evenings, you 200, and compare what you've instructed. Arakiel boasts about his earth-reading followers. Burkle describes temples erected to honor constellations. Shazakiel laughs about farmers who now forecast weather superior to their grandfathers. Shamsiel and Seriel present mathematical proofs their human pupils have calculated. Pride saturates these assemblies. You've lifted humanity past their assigned position. You've granted them authority that should have stayed in heaven. You've made them almost like deities, almost like you. The irony goes unnoticed. In attempting to elevate humans to your level, you've descended to theirs. In distributing divine mysteries, you've made profane what was sacred. The understanding itself stays accurate. The stars still rotate according to principle. The earth still shakes according to sequence. But torn from its correct setting, truth becomes corruption. You remember when you only observed, when witnessing meant presence without interference, when the separation between heaven and earth stayed absolute. That angel has disappeared. You don't grieve him. You pity his ignorance. Your human wife requests you teach her the stars. She wants to understand her fate. You escort her outside under darkness and identify the constellations, Baracel labeled. You outline their trajectories, clarify their significance, expose how they control her life. She listens with wide eyes. She believes every word. Afterward, she seems diminished somehow. The mystery has departed her. She knows too much. She carries understanding that fits wrong in mortal structure, like armor worn by children, technically protective, practically crushing. You observe this sequence repeated across all your kind. The humans who learn from you develop strangeness. They acquire an unsettling confidence, a cosmic arrogance that mirrors your own. They stop requesting gods for favor and begin demanding heavens for responses. They quit living within mystery and start dissecting it. They become less than they were. So do you. The instruction continues regardless. Momentum pushes you forward. Each watcher discovers fresh mysteries to distribute, new understanding to corrupt. The flow becomes deluge. Humanity drowns in wisdom they cannot properly contain. And still the heavens stay silent. You search the night sky you've taught humans to navigate. You look for some indication of approval, some sign that your elevation of mankind pleases the Ancient of Days. The stars rotate in their paths. The moon influences the tides. The sun appears and disappears with mechanical accuracy. No voice emerges from the light. The silence should alert you. Instead, it encourages. If heaven doesn't protest, heaven must consent. If the Most High wanted you to cease, surely he would communicate. His quiet signifies permission. You believe this with desperate force. You must believe this, because accepting the alternative, that his silence signifies something far worse than disapproval, would require facing what you've become. So you continue instructing, continue corrupting, continue pretending that distributing cosmic mysteries to mortal minds constitutes guidance rather than violation. The earth itself begins transforming under the burden of exposed understanding. Humans construct according to celestial mathematics, plant according to stellar diagrams, organize their lives around lunar cycles and solar patterns. The natural pulse of being, the balance between knowing and mystery, collapses. Structure becomes disorder masquerading as wisdom. You stand on the mountain one evening observing the sun descend. According to the exact calculations Shamsiel taught, you know precisely when darkness will arrive. You comprehend the mechanism completely. The sunset feels less magnificent for your comprehension. Understanding has murdered wonder. You grasp with creeping dread that you've done to these humans exactly what your revelation has done to you. You've eliminated their capacity for amazement. You've replaced faith with formulas. You've assassinated their sense of sacred mystery. But this recognition arrives too late. The understanding spreads like disease. Every pupil instructs others. Every revelation spawns 1,000 more. What started as 200 watchers distributing mysteries becomes entire societies constructed on forbidden wisdom. Humanity transforms before your vision. They were designed to walk in faith, to trust without complete comprehension, to exist within mystery. You've stolen that from them. You've forced cosmic understanding into minds too limited to contain it correctly. The outcome is monsters of a different nature than your Nephilim children. These are monsters of comprehension. Humans who understand too much, who've seen behind curtains designed to stay closed, who carry awareness that corrodes their souls. You created them, you and your kind. Not through physical joining this time, but through intellectual violation. The burden of this settles on you like rock. You've corrupted two ways now, through flesh and through understanding, through body and through mind. And still you cannot halt. The foundations of magic and healing, Armados appears at your home with hands marked green and black. He brings roots, numerous ones, extracted from earth and shadow, each one vibrating with properties you never noticed during your celestial observation. He spreads them across stone and starts his instruction with the excitement of a scholar who has uncovered new text in an ancient library. These aren't simple plants. Each root holds power to heal, to damage, to alter consciousness, to bind intentions. Armaros has examined them with focus that approaches obsession. He knows which combinations halt bleeding, which ones create visions, which ones accelerate or decelerate the heart. He grasps the grammar of growth, the syntax of sap and stem. You absorb quickly. Your angelic mind, designed for flawless retention, captures every detail. The harvesting of roots, the creation of potions, the words that must accompany certain mixtures to trigger their deeper properties. This final element disturbs you. The words, the incantations, these aren't prayers. They circumvent the Ancient of Days entirely. They invoke forces beneath and between, authorities that dwell in the cracks of creation. Araros names this sorcery. He names it enchantment. He names it knowledge. You name it what it is. Magic severed from divine origin. The daughters of men clamor for this instruction more than any other. A woman whose child suffers from fever wants healing roots. You supply them. She returns days later with questions about other roots, other combinations, ones that might make a rival less attractive, ones that might secure a wandering husband's affection. You instruct her. You convince yourself you're only sharing understanding. What she does with it stays her decision. The same rationalization you've employed about 1,000 times now. Across the settlements, primitive versions of healing centers emerge. Women who've learned from you and Armaros collect roots and blend potions. Some heal genuinely, others harm while claiming to help. Still others discover that certain mixtures, certain words, certain combinations unlock something deeper. Doorways that should have stayed shut. The enchantments multiply. Love, spells, curses, bindings, protections. Each one a small rebellion against natural structure, a tiny assertion of human will against divine plan. You've granted them instruments to reshape reality according to their desires rather than according to the design. Penyu takes this corruption further. He instructs in writing not the simple marking of clay for trade documentation. Humanity already possessed that crude skill. Penyu exposes true writing, the conversion of thought into symbol, symbol into permanence, permanence into authority. He demonstrates ink derived from certain roots and minerals. He shows paper crafted from specific plants. But his real gift proves more poisonous than any potion Araros could create. Penyu instructs the bitter and the sweet. He shows humanity how to preserve lies alongside truth, how to document poison as readily as medicine, how to transmit corruption across generations through written word. Before writing, each generation had to learn wickedness anew. After writing, sin becomes curriculum. You observe him, instruct a circle of eager students. They hang on every word as he clarifies how symbols capture meaning, how marks on surface can hold thought permanently. He exposes the secrets of wisdom, not wisdom itself, but the method of documenting, preserving, and passing it. The students begin writing immediately. They document everything you watchers have taught. The star diagrams, the weapon creation, the root harvesting, the enchantments. What was secret becomes scripture. What was forbidden becomes foundation. Libraries emerge, small at first, collections of tablets and early paper stored in dedicated structures, but they expand. Each generation adds to the previous one's understanding. The written word becomes authority. If something exists in writing, it must be accurate. It must be correct. You perceive the trap too late. By instructing humanity to write, Penyu has ensured that your corruption will outlive you. Even if you cease teaching today, Even if all 200 watchers suddenly vanished, the understanding would remain, permanent, proliferating, poisoning. Your wife learns to write. She practices constantly, tongue between teeth, as she forms symbols with careful accuracy. She asks you to tell her things worth documenting. You share stories of heaven, carefully modified versions that omit your growing fear, your increasing consciousness of wrongness. She writes them down, every word. She creates scripture from your memories, holy text from your nostalgia. Others read what she's written. They copy it. They add their own interpretations. Soon, distorted versions of celestial truth circulate like currency. You've become mythology. Your kind, once servants of the Most High, now converted into pantheon. The humans worship you as gods, because you've behaved like gods. You've distributed forbidden understanding, produced hybrid offspring, taught magic and writing and mysteries beyond their station. You've replaced the one who made you. The realization should shatter you. Instead, it hardens something inside. You've come too far to reverse direction. You're invested now in your human family, in your reputation, in the civilization you've helped construct. Retreat means admitting error. Admission means facing the magnitude of your crime. Easier to continue, easier to convince yourself that understanding is never wrong, that elevation of humanity serves some higher purpose, that the silence from heaven means approval rather than gathering storm. Armoros visits again. He brings fresh roots this time, darker ones. He's uncovered combinations that don't just heal or harm, they create openings in the mind. They allow perception of things typically hidden. Users report visions of entities that exist just past normal sight, creatures in the margins, voices in the dark. You ask him what these entities are. He shrugs. They've always been there, he clarifies. The roots simply make them visible. You grasp with creeping horror that by instructing sorcery and enchantment, you've introduced humanity to a layer of reality they were never designed to perceive. There are things in creation that exist outside the divine structure, leftovers perhaps from before the speaking forth of light. Chaos remnants that the Most High contained but did not destroy. Humanity was protected by ignorance. You've stripped that protection away. The women who learn these deeper practices transform. Their eyes develop a hunted quality. They flinch at shadows. They speak to empty air. They claim the entities instruct them things. Secret names, hidden paths, ways to access authority without divine permission. You've opened hell without meaning to, but you cannot seal what you've exposed. The understanding spreads, the practices multiply. What began as simple root harvesting becomes full ritual system. Circles drawn on earth, words spoken in tongues no human should speak, offerings made to things that should not receive worship. Penemu documents all of it. His students write everything down. The sorcery manuals grow thick with procedure and formula. Future generations will read these texts and learn corruption from comfortable distance, never having met a watcher, never having witnessed the consequence. Your legacy will be poison in written form. The settlements near your mountain become strange. Everyone practices some form of magic now. The air itself feels dense with working, with spells layered upon spells, enchantments woven through daily life. Invocations so common they blend into background noise. Reality grows thin in these places. The boundary between the seen and unseen erodes. Things leak through. You catch glimpses of them. Sometimes the entities that the root-induced visions expose. They observe with interest. They wait. Samjaza calls a gathering of the 200. You assemble on the same mountain where you swore your original oath. Standing here feels different now. The location seems colder. The air tastes of ash. We need to address what's happening, Samjaza begins. He looks diminished somehow, authority draining away like water through cupped hands. The silence from heaven, the absence of the other angels, the sense that we've been cut off. Cut off from what? Azel challenges. From their judgment, from their limitations. We should celebrate this silence. It means we're free. Free or condemned? Another watcher asks. His voice breaks with fear. What if the silence means we've been doomed? What if we're no longer counted among the host? The question hangs unanswered. You think about identity, about what defines a watcher, an angel, a son of God. Is it origin, function, connection to source? If the connection severs, do you remain what you were, or do you become something else entirely? Your reflection on this is interrupted by motion in the distance. The earth trembles, subtle, barely noticeable, but you feel it through your feet, through bones, through whatever remains of your angelic senses. Archiel feels it too. He kneels, presses hands against stone. His face goes pale. The earth is crying, he says quietly. What? Samjaza moves closer. The earth, the ground itself, it's in distress. The vibrations, they're not natural. They're expressions of pain. The planet is suffering under the weight of what we've done. Several watchers dismiss this as metaphor, but you know Arakiel's skill with earth reading. If he says the ground is crying, then the ground is crying. The implications are vast. You've corrupted humanity, yes. Produced hybrid offspring, yes. Taught forbidden understanding, yes. But this suggests something deeper. You've wounded creation itself. The physical world is responding to your spiritual violation. The gathering dissolves into argument. Half the watchers insist Arakiel is mistaken. The other half demand explanations. Samjaza tries to restore order and fails. The unity you once possessed is fractured beyond repair. You leave before the argument can conclude. You've heard enough. Walking back toward your valley, you notice details you've previously ignored. The trees look wrong. Healthy enough, but somehow off. Their growth patterns don't match natural development. They've been influenced by your presence, shaped by the corruption you emit simply by existing in this flesh. The grass beneath your feet feels brittle. The air tastes metallic. Even the light seems different, harsher, less nurturing. The world is sick. You are the disease. Your compound comes into view. From this distance, it looks idyllic. Beautiful structures, organized gardens, smoke rising from cooking fires. Paradise as you've built it. But you see it now with new understanding. This isn't paradise. This is infection site. Ground zero for corruption that spreads outward in concentric rings, poisoning everything it touches. Your wife greets you at the entrance. She's prepared food as she always does. She talks about her day, about the children's activities, about plans for expanding the garden. Normal domestic conversation. You barely hear her. You're listening to silence from above, feeling the absence where connection once existed, sensing the earth's distress beneath your feet. She notices your distraction again. This time, she presses. Something is wrong, she insists. You've been different lately. Distant. Tell me what troubles you. You look at her. This woman you chose, this human you elevated, this creature you've loved and corrupted in equal measure, she deserves truth. But truth would destroy her. I miss home, you say finally. You are home, she responds, gesturing at your compound. This is your home. We are your home. The misunderstanding is complete. She thinks you mean a physical place. She doesn't comprehend that home for a watcher was never about location. Home was connection, presence, the awareness of the Ancient of Days, like sunlight on your face. That home is gone. You are homeless in the deepest possible sense. You're right, you tell her. I'm just tired. She accepts this again, always accepting surface explanations because depth terrifies her. You eat the meal she's prepared. You go through the motions of normal existence. You pretend everything is fine. That night, you dream. Angels dream differently than humans. Less symbol, more memory and echo. Your dream carries you back to before descent, before oath, before corruption. You stand in the throne room. The light is almost unbearable. The song of the host fills every particle of space. The Ancient of Days sits at the center of all things, and his attention touches you like blessing. You are complete, whole, connected. You are home. Then you wake. Your wife sleeps beside you, one arm across your chest. Your children breathe heavily in adjacent rooms. The compound surrounds you with all its beautiful wrongness. You are in paradise. You are in hell. The distinction has become meaningless. The archangelic tribunal. They stand before the throne. Michael, Gabriel, Raphael, Fool, the faithful ones who did not descend. The ones who maintained their station while you abandoned yours. They bear witness to what you've done. You know nothing of this tribunal. You cannot see it. The connection that once would have allowed you to sense heavenly proceedings has been severed. You continue your existence on earth, ignorant of the judgment taking shape above. But the archangels see everything. Michael speaks first. His voice carries the weight of authority you once recognized, but no longer hear. He describes the bloodshed on earth, the Nephilim consuming resources meant for humans, the violence that has become normal. Children torn from mothers, fields trampled, livestock slaughtered for sport rather than need. Your hybrid offspring have transformed from children into monsters. Their appetites have grown beyond what the earth can sustain. What began as merely eating human food has escalated into devastation. They take without thought of consequence. They destroy because they can. Gabriel presents the case of corruption. He details the forbidden knowledge spread across the earth. The weapon forging that has turned human against human, the cosmetics that have bred vanity, the astrology that has replaced faith with fatalism, the root cutting that has opened doors never meant to be opened. Every secret you taught, every mystery you profaned, every boundary you violated. Gabriel catalogues it all with precise, terrible accuracy. Raphael speaks of spiritual contamination. He describes how the Nephilim themselves are abominations, beings neither fully angelic nor fully human, caught between states in perpetual wrongness. Their existence violates the order of creation. They should never have been possible. But you made them possible. You and the other watchers through union that was never meant to occur. Fuel addresses the Earth's testimony. The ground itself cries out as Arakiel sensed. The planet groans under the weight of corruption. The natural order has been bent so severely it threatens to break. Rivers run with blood. Soil refuses to yield proper harvest. Animals flee from regions where watchers dwell. Creation itself begs for relief. The Ancient of Days listens. His silence is not absence but attention. He has witnessed every moment of your descent, every choice, every rationalization, every act of corruption disguised as guidance. He saw when you first noticed the daughters of men. He watched you take the oath. He observed your unions. He heard you teach forbidden secrets. He gave you freedom to choose. You chose this. The archangels complete their testimony. They stand in formation, waiting for response. The throne room fills with presence so dense it becomes nearly physical. The weight of divine attention focuses on the situation you've created. Then the Most High speaks. His words reshape reality. What he declares becomes absolute law. The sentence he pronounces cannot be appealed or reversed. Judgment falls like hammer on anvil. Raphael receives his commission first. He is to descend to earth and bind Azel, the chief teacher of forbidden arts, the one who showed humanity how to forge weapons and craft cosmetics. Azel, who took the most pride in his corruption. Raphael is to take him to Dudale, a rough, jagged wasteland, and bind him hand and foot. There, Azel will remain in darkness under sharp stones until the final judgment. Gabriel receives his mission. He is to incite the Nephilim against each other, to stir up the sons of earth for a great slaughter. The hybrid offspring must destroy themselves. This is mercy in its way. It's preferable that they perish at one another's hands rather than face what lies beyond death. The giants shall devour each other. The world will be purified through their violence against one another. Michael is given orders concerning one particular man, Noah. This singular righteous individual, along with his household, requires protection. They must conceal themselves, make preparations, for a deluge approaches. Waters destined to blanket the planet and eliminate the contamination spread by you and those like you. Every living thing shall perish, save for those sheltered within the vessel. The judgment proves all-encompassing. Listen carefully. The Watchers will be shackled within realms of shadow. Their progeny faces elimination. Mankind will experience near total annihilation, continuing solely through one family's bloodline. All your creations will crumble. Every soul you cherished will meet their end. Your Eden shall transform into a cemetery. Yet this knowledge escapes you still. Your days continue in the valley, overseeing your domain, instructing your pupils, acting as though heaven's quietness carries no weight. The archangels commence their approach. They travel with intention and power you relinquished. They shoulder the burden of heavenly mandate. They serve as tools of divine reckoning. Their destination is you. Michael makes his descent initially, heading toward Noah's territory. His coming lacks fanfare. Mortals cannot detect his actual essence. He manifests before Noah in a manner the virtuous man can grasp. Maybe as a wanderer, possibly through visions, potentially via omens inscribed in the natural world. The communication remains unmistakable. Conceal yourself, construct a ship, assemble your kin. The catastrophic waters draw near. Noah starts following these directions. Complete understanding eludes him. How could it not? Devotion demands compliance absent total clarity. He commences building something massive, something lacking sense within present circumstances. Those around him believe madness has claimed him. Ridicule flows freely. They question his construction of an enormous vessel, nowhere near waters capable of supporting it. Noah persists in his labor. The warning he obtained earns his confidence. Gabriel makes his descent subsequently. His objective isn't particular watchers, rather their descendants. He travels across territories inhabited by the Nephilim, unseen by ordinary perception, yet visible to those possessing tainted sight. The giants detect his arrival without comprehending its significance. He injects thoughts into their consciousness, cultivates ideas, magnifies pre-existing hostilities among them. The Nephilim have perpetually competed. Too many apex hunters occupying insufficient territory. Gabriel converts competition into loathing. The initial bloodshed among Nephilim ignites within mere days. A quarrel regarding provisions escalates to combat. Two giants, each matching multiple men in size, wrestling with power that trembles the ground beneath. One collapses, the other savors triumph. This flavor proves addictive. Additional conflicts emerge. What started as separate incidents transforms into a pattern. The Nephilim assault one another with mounting rage. Raphael descends finally, advancing with the precise intent of his assignment. His focus proves singular. Azazel, the watcher who instructed in weaponry and adornments, the one embodying corruption most thoroughly. Raphael locates him within his estate, encircled by human followers, imparting the newest forbidden craft. Azazel instructs in smelting a novel metal, one yielding blades keener than anything previously manufactured. Raphael's approach goes unnoticed. How could detection occur? Connection to the celestial realm has been severed. Archangelic presence can no longer be sensed as before. Raphael materializes abruptly, appearing in a shape even the fallen Azazel must acknowledge. The brilliance, the power, the unmistakable signature of heaven's authority. Azazel's students disperse in panic. They perceive solely overwhelming force, not shape. Their flight comes with screams. Azazel confronts Raphael in isolation. Momentarily, the instructor of forbidden knowledge recalls his former nature, his previous identity, the position he forsook. Then Raphael acts. No battle occurs, no resistance. Azazel, disconnected from his power's wellspring, proves helpless before an archangel maintaining connection. Raphael restrains him, securing hands and feet. These restraints transcend physicality. Reality itself undergoes rewriting to confine what ordinary rope or metal cannot contain. The journey then commences. Raphael hauls Azazel across the planet toward Dudael. The remaining watchers perceive the disturbance. You experience it, a wrongness permeating the spiritual realm. Something foundational has altered. Comprehension evades you, not immediately, but terror begins emerging. Genuine terror. The variety absent since before your fall, the verdict arrives. The Ancient of Days pronounces judgment. His utterance lacks thunder. The foundations of heaven remain steady. Divine declaration requires no theatrical display. Truth spoken from the throne simply manifests as reality. The archangels stand assembled, awaiting. Michael, Gabriel, Raphael, Phanuel, witnessing what transpires. They've submitted their evidence. They've documented your transgressions with accuracy, permitting no disagreement. Now, judgment arrives. The initial decree targets Azazel, particularly your fellow watcher, who taught humanity weapon forging and cosmetic crafting, who demonstrated sword and shield creation, jewelry and decorations, who disclosed eternal mysteries of metals, stones, and pigments. Raphael obtains his assignment. Descent to earth and binding Azazel hand and foot. The procedure receives specification. Throw him into shadow. Bury him beneath jagged rocks in Dudael's wilderness. Their permanent residence awaits until the great day of final judgment. The sentence carries finality, permanence. Azazel will know no illumination, no solace, no communion, solely the pressure of sharp stones and absolute darkness pressing down. Consciousness persisting through every instant, cognizant of isolation, escape, and awareness termination, both impossible. This represents mercy compared to what final judgment brings. The binding constitutes containment. True sentencing arrives later. Gabriel receives subsequent instructions. He must proceed against the Nephilim, against fornication's sons. Incite them, stir them toward mutual conflict. Allow mutual slaughter to destroy them. The hybrid descendants must eliminate themselves, fathers turned upon sons, siblings upon siblings. The corruption you generated will self-consume through violence, mirroring the violence inflicted upon creation. Their days lack extension. Even if some survive initial warfare, endurance eludes them. The Nephilim possess no place within the continuing order. They represent errors reality itself rejects. Michael's assignment carries different significance. He proceeds to Noah, the solitary righteous man, remaining among corrupted generations. He informs Noah of approaching events, instructs him in vessel construction. Noah must hide. The deluge approaches. Waters will blanket the planet, eliminating every corrupted thing. All flesh faces destruction, human and beast, pure and impure, everything excluding what Noah safeguards within the ark. The planet receives cleansing, renewal, preparation for continuation following catastrophe. But the decree extends further. Michael receives supplementary instruction regarding you and fellow watchers. Following the flood, following the purification, binding occurs. Each descended watcher will be transported to designated locations, confined in darkness, detained until the judgment concluding all existence. 70 generations, you'll wait, restrained and conscious, cognizant of your offense, incapable of further corruption, unable to instruct, unable to contact the creation you violated. 70 generations of humanity will flourish and fade while you occupy darkness. Societies will emerge from Noah's offspring. Countries will take shape. Empires will construct and disintegrate, all transpiring while you remain frozen within your punishment. The number carries precision. 70, neither 69 nor 71. This exactness signals divine mathematics. This isn't random penalty. This constitutes measured repercussion. Following 70 generations, final judgment materializes. That day brings casting into flame. Total obliteration. The binding represents temporary incarceration. The fire means permanent conclusion. You and fellow watchers will cease existing, not as angels. That status was forfeited upon descent. You'll cease existing as anything, unmade, deleted from creation, as completely as though existence never occurred. The throne room absorbs this proclamation. The words settle into reality like stones dropped into profound waters. Ripples expand outward, contacting every existence level. Heaven comprehends. Earth will discover shortly. Even shadow realms feel divine judgment's weight pronounced. The archangels bow deeply. They accept assignments without questioning. Michael will alert Noah. Gabriel will provoke the Nephilim. Raphael will restrain Azazel initially, then return for others when time arrives. No discussion exists, no bargaining, no appeal mechanism. The Ancient of Days has declared. His word stands final. Phanuel receives his responsibility also, though more understated than others. He guards the righteous, ensuring Noah's lineage survives what approaches, protecting the remnant, rebuilding after floodwaters. Where other archangels execute judgment, Phanuel preserves hope. Where they eliminate corruption, he maintains renewal's seed. Both functions prove necessary, both serve identical purpose. Restoration of the violated order. The sentence encompasses all things. The watchers themselves confront binding and eventual obliteration. The Nephilim face reciprocal annihilation. Corrupted humanity confronts the flood. The planet itself will be submerged and purified. Only Noah and his household escape. 8 mortals, 1 righteous man and his immediate family. From this remnant, civilization emerges anew. This occasion without watcher interference. This occasion according to original design. The archangels exit the throne room. They descend purposefully. They shoulder divine commission's weight. They are instruments of the Most High's intention, executing judgment absent mercy, yet also absent malice. This isn't revenge. This is rectification. The universe, bent toward corruption by you and your kind, requires straightening. The order you violated requires restoration. The boundaries you transgressed require re-establishment. The procedure will be absolute. When purification completes, no visible trace of your corruption remains. The knowledge you imparted will be eliminated with the civilizations that absorbed it. The Nephilim will be eradicated to the final giant. The structures you erected will collapse beneath the flood. Even this age's memory will diminish, preserved solely in remnants. Future generations will hear tales of giants and fallen ones, but stories will lose precision. The corruption becomes mythology. The violation becomes folklore. You become warning. Cautionary narrative for generations yet unconceived. The watchers who descended, the angels who deserted their station, the sons of God who observed mankind's daughters and forgot their calling. Your names will endure. Semjazar, Azazel, Barakel, Shamziel, all 200 documented in texts surviving the flood, preserved as illustrations of consequences when divine beings exceed their limits. But you'll be absent to witness how remembrance occurs. You'll be restrained in shadow, awaiting. 70 generations of waiting preceding the final flames. The sentence is delivered. The decree stands absolute. The machinery of judgment commences its unstoppable forward progression. On earth, your existence continues in ignorance. Knowledge that heaven has declared your termination remains absent. Understanding that the silence from above represented a court deliberating your destiny eludes you, but knowledge arrives soon. Raphael descends. Even presently Gabriel prepares advancing among the Nephilim. Michael approaches Noah, bearing warning and direction. The sentence is delivered. The execution commences. The binding of the prison keeper. You witness it transpiring from afar. Raphael manifests like tempest given flesh. His radiance isn't the gentle luminescence remembered from before. This represents the severe brilliance of divine fury. It penetrates the settlement where Azazel resides, dispersing humans and Nephilim equally. Azazel stands immobile. You observe from your mountain, too distant to intercede, too proximate to miss any detail. The binding proves swift. Raphael speaks words in the ancient tongue. True language, the one employed for creation itself. Each syllable reconstructs reality. Azazel's shape, already corrupted through flesh, becomes restricted in ways defying simple explanation. His hands twist inward, pulled together as though attracted by force exceeding gravity. His feet collapse beneath him. The bonds are invisible yet absolute. He resists, dragged by connections, bypassing the requirement for hands or cord. They traverse the planet at speeds, making landscape blur. You follow at distance. Witnessing becomes necessary. Knowing becomes essential. Other watchers accompany you, a dozen initially, then additional. You advance as a collective, maintaining separation from Raphael's trajectory, yet tracking his heading. The journey leads eastward, then northward toward increasingly desolate lands. Dudail. You recognize the name without understanding how recognition occurs. It surfaces from memory predating your descent, knowledge implanted when you were formed. Dudail represents a place of termination, of separation, of punishment. The terrain grows hostile. Sharp rocks protrude from earth like shattered teeth. Canyons split the ground in jagged wounds. No plant life, no moisture, just stone and darkness and the sensation of profound wrongness. Raphael brings Azazel to this wasteland's deepest section, Ashazm Opings. Whether it perpetually existed or whether Raphael speaks it into being, determination proves impossible. The pit descends past sight, past illumination. The archangel casts Azazel downward. You hear his scream. It reverberates up from the darkness. Not physical sound, rather spiritual torment transmitted through channels thoughts severed. Every watcher within range experiences it. The cry of your kind being consigned to imprisonment. Raphael begins speaking. The words constitute formula, decree, sentence. They establish parameters holding until final judgment. Azazel will remain restrained in this darkness. The rough stones will provide his covering. Light's absence will be his companion. He will await there, conscious, aware, solitary, until all things conclude. The binding completes. Raphael seals the chasm with words becoming more substantial than stone. The opening persists. You can observe it. A wound in the planet, but nothing can enter or depart absent divine permission. Azazel's presence disappears from the spiritual landscape. One instant you sense him, the next solely absence exists. A void where a watcher previously existed. Raphael pivots. His gaze sweeps across the assembled watchers. You number perhaps 50, those courageous or reckless enough to follow. His expression contains no mercy, no acknowledgement of former kinship. You are no longer brothers. You are condemned. He vanishes. Returns to heaven, obtaining his subsequent assignment. The silence following proves absolute. Semjaza speaks initially, his voice barely operational. They've arrived for us, the obvious stated vocally, but hearing it creates reality. Heaven hasn't simply withdrawn. Heaven has turned against you. The silence wasn't approval, it was preparation. You're being hunted by those once calling you brother. Panic spreads through the assembled watchers. Some flee instantly, scattering to individual estates. Others stand frozen, unable processing what they've witnessed. A few approach the sealed chasm, pressing against the boundary Raphael created, attempting to reach Azazel. They cannot. The barrier maintains. Azazel is gone, locked beyond reach until judgment. You approach the edge yourself. You peer into the darkness, searching for some glimpse of what exists below. You observe nothing, experience nothing. The pit consumes light and returns solely void. This is your future. All of you. Different locations perhaps, but identical, essential fate. Bound in darkness, separated, imprisoned, waiting. The journey back to your valley requires longer than the journey out. Fear possesses weight. It decelerates movement. Each step feels like walking deeper into inevitability. The other watchers who witnessed Azazel's binding spread the information. Within days, all 200 know. The responses vary. Some rage against heaven's injustice. Some weep. Some descend into denial. Azazel taught the most. They argue. We didn't share as many secrets. Surely our punishment will be lighter. The rationalization is pathetic. You all comprehend better. Your wife meets you at the compound entrance. She's heard rumors, distorted accounts of something terrible happening to one of your kind. She requests truth. You tell her everything. Raphael's descent, Azazel's binding, the chasm in Dudael, the sentence awaiting the rest of you. She doesn't understand. How could she? Divine judgment is abstraction to humans. They cannot fully grasp what it means for an angel to be bound in darkness until time's conclusion. Then we run, she suggests. We hide. Go somewhere they cannot find us. The innocence of it shatters something inside you. There is nowhere to hide from heaven, nowhere to flee from those who can observe all creation simultaneously. Raphael will arrive for each of you in sequence. Gabriel will continue stirring up the Nephilim to mutual destruction. Michael will ensure Noah's Ark nears completion. The machinery of judgment grinds forward, unstoppable. You hold your wife close and say nothing. Let her maintain her hope a little longer. That night, you dream of the chasm. You stand at its edge in the darkness. Azazel's screams echo up from below, mixing with earth's cries and humanity's wailing. The sounds blend into a choir of suffering. You wake before dawn. Your wife sleeps peacefully. Your children breathe heavily in their rooms. Your compound sits silent around you. All of it is already gone. You simply haven't finished experiencing the ending yet. The instruction of Noah, rain will arrive. Michael delivers this message to the solitary righteous man in a generation drowning in corruption. Noah receives instruction with the gravity it deserves. He is to build an ark. Dimensions provided with precision, length, width, height, 3 levels, a window, a door in the side. He is to gather his family, his wife, his 3 sons, and their wives, 8 humans total. He is to bring animals, 2 of every unclean variety, 7 of every clean variety, sufficient to repopulate the planet after waters recede, because the planet will be covered completely. Every valley filled, every mountain submerged, all flesh destroyed, except what Noah protects in the vessel. You know none of this directly. Michael does not announce his commission to the Watchers. You discover Noah's construction through your network of corrupted humans. Reports come back of a massive wooden structure rising far from any significant water source. Curiosity draws you to investigate. You travel to the region, maintaining distance to avoid attention. You observe from elevated ground. The ark is enormous already. Its ribs show the scale of the finished product. Noah and his sons work with dedicated efficiency, following a plan clearly beyond human origin. They cut timber according to precise measurements. They coat surfaces with pitch. They construct according to divine blueprint. Humans from surrounding areas gather to watch. They mock Noah's efforts. They ask why he builds a boat for a flood that hasn't come. They suggest he's lost his mind. Noah ignores them. He continues working day after day, month after month. You watch and understand. This is preparation for judgment, for cleansing, for the destruction of everything you've built. The ark represents continuation beyond catastrophe. Noah's family will survive what's coming. Your family will not. The thought should drive you to action. You could stop this construction. Your strength exceeds Noah's by vast magnitude. One strike would demolish weeks of work. A single command would scatter the builders. But you don't intervene. Something holds you back. Maybe residual respect for divine commission. Maybe recognition that fighting is futile. Maybe simple exhaustion. You watch Noah work and envy his clarity. He knows his purpose. He follows instruction without doubt. He builds toward future he cannot yet see, but trusts will arrive. You have no such certainty. Your future is darkness and binding. Your purpose has been corrupted beyond recovery. Your trust was misplaced in your own wisdom rather than in the one who made you. Noah represents what you might have been if you'd remained faithful, obedient, righteous, connected to Source. Instead, you are what you are, condemned. You return to your valley. Your wife asks about your journey. You describe the construction, but omit the implications. She doesn't need to know. Not yet. Let her have peace, while peace remains possible. The Nephilim violence escalates. Gabriel's work bears terrible fruit. The giants turn on each other with increasing savagery. What began as competition has become genocide. They hunt their own kind through regions that once held their settlements. Your children participate. They come home, bloodied, excited, describing battles with their hybrid cousins. They speak of it like sport, like entertainment. You see yourself reflected in their eyes, your corruption made flesh, your violation given form. They are monsters because you made them monsters. Every drop of blood they spill is blood on your hands. The earth's cries intensify. Uriel's observation proves more accurate than anyone wanted to accept. The ground itself revolts against what walks upon it. Crops fail in regions where Nephilim dwell. Animals flee. Water sources turn bitter. Creation is rejecting the corruption you introduced. You call a final gathering of the 200, those who remain free, at least. Azazil's absence creates a gap that cannot be filled. Several others have vanished. Whether taken by Raphael or fled to remote regions, you don't know. Perhaps 150 watchers assemble. You look diminished, weathered. The flesh you wear has begun to show strain. Some watchers appear almost human now, their angelic nature nearly consumed by physical form. Semjaza speaks. His voice cracks with desperation. We need to decide. Do we flee? Do we fight? Do we surrender? Flee where, someone asks. They can see all creation. Fight how, another adds. Azazel was bound in seconds. What chance do we have against archangels who remain connected to Source? Surrender to what? A third voices. To binding in darkness, to imprisonment until judgment. No good options exist. Every path leads to ending. Barakel suggests appealing to the Ancient of Days directly. Perhaps if you approached in humility, acknowledged your crime, begged for mercy, the suggestion dies in awkward silence. You all know such appeals come too late. The machinery of judgment is already in motion. Noah's Ark rises day by day. The Nephilim destroy each other with increasing efficiency. Raphael hunts those who taught the most forbidden knowledge. Mercy is no longer available. You had mercy when you stood before dissent. You had mercy when you first noticed the daughters of men. You had mercy at every moment before the oath. You chose this instead. The gathering dissolves without resolution. You scatter back to individual compounds to await the inevitable. You pass Noah's construction site again on your return journey. More progress has been made. The ark takes definite shape now. You can see how it will look complete. A massive wooden vessel sealed against the coming waters. Noah sees you this time. He pauses in his work. Your eyes meet across the distance. He knows what you are. You know what he represents. Neither speaks. What is there to say? You are dying civilization. He is future civilization. You are corruption being purged. He is remnant being preserved. He returns to his construction. You continue toward your valley. The sky has changed. The patterns Shamsiel taught you to read now show something unprecedented. Weather systems are forming that make no natural sense. Clouds gather in configurations that predict neither normal rain nor normal drought. The atmospheric pressure builds. The quality of air shifts. Even humans can feel it. Something massive approaches. something that will reshape everything. Your wife asks about the strange weather. You tell her it's probably nothing. The lie tastes like ash. The sky forgets how to be normal. Clouds mass in formations you've never witnessed. They stack vertically, reaching altitudes that should be impossible. The patterns Shamsiel taught, the reading of vapor and wind, no longer apply. This is weather divorced from natural law. The atmospheric pressure increases daily. Animals behave strangely. Birds flee regions they've inhabited for generations. Livestock refuse to graze in certain fields. Dogs howl at nothing visible. The earth knows. Creation senses what's coming. Your Nephilim children grow agitated. They pace the compound like caged predators. The violence between giants has become total warfare. Each day brings news of another fallen. Your offspring return from these battles with wounds that don't heal properly. Their flesh, neither fully angelic nor fully human, struggles to repair itself. One of your sons arrives at sunset, dragging himself through the compound entrance. Half his face is torn away. Blood, too red to be angelic, too luminous to be human, pools beneath him. Your wife screams. She rushes to help him. You stand frozen, watching your monstrous child suffer the consequences of your violation. He dies before dawn, the first of your children to fall. His body dissolves slowly, flesh separating from bones that turn to powder. Nothing remains by morning except stains on stone. This is the fate of all Nephilim. They are creatures that should never have existed. They have no place in the natural order. Even their bodies recognize the wrongness and refuse to remain intact after death. The other children sense their mortality. They become frantic. Some descend into savage rage, seeking to take as many of their kind with them as possible. Others grow withdrawn, almost catatonic with despair. Your wife blames heaven for their suffering. She curses the Ancient of Days. She declares the judgment unjust. These are her children, she cries, her babies. What crime did they commit except being born? You cannot answer. The crime is yours, not theirs. They are punishment, made flesh. Consequences given form. More watchers vanish. Raphael continues his work. You hear reports of bindings, watchers seized and dragged to places of darkness. Each disappearance tightens the noose. Each vanishing reminds you that your turn approaches. Semjaza receives a vision. He describes it in a gathering of the remaining watchers. He saw the final judgment. He saw you bound not just until the flood, but beyond, until the end of all ages, until creation itself is unmade and remade. The binding is not temporary. There is no parole, no redemption, only darkness and waiting, and the weight of your crime pressing down forever. Several watchers break completely upon hearing this. They flee into wilderness, seeking isolation from both heaven and earth. Others turn violent, lashing out at their human families. The compounds that were paradise become prisons of terror. You maintain composure through force of will. Your wife and remaining children need stability. They need to believe some hope exists, even though you know better. The violence between Nephilim reaches a crescendo. Gabriel's work is nearly complete. The giants destroy each other with efficiency that would impress had it not been your own offspring being eliminated. Entire bloodlines end in single battles. Hybrid races you spent decades creating vanish in hours. The earth drinks their blood. The ground, already crying, now screams. Every region where Nephilim fall becomes cursed land. Nothing will grow there. Nothing will live there. The corruption has soaked so deep that it will take cleansing flood to make those places clean again. Your compound sits on such land. You stand in your garden, the one arranged according to celestial calculations, and watch it die. Plants wither despite careful tending. Water turns brackish in the channels Azazel's techniques created. Beauty transforms to decay in real time. Paradise is rotting from within. Humans who learned from you begin to turn against each other. The weapons Azazel taught them to forge become instruments of mutual destruction. Neighbor strikes neighbor. Communities split along lines of suspicion and fear. The civilization you helped build tears itself apart. Some humans come to you begging for intervention. Make it stop, they plead. Use your power to restore order. You have no power. Not anymore. You are watchers separated from source, fallen without yet landing, dead without yet ceasing to move. You send them away. Their disappointment is absolute. They expected gods. They discovered you are barely more than they are. The sky continues its transformation. The clouds now cover the entire visible heaven. They press down like a ceiling, lowering slowly, building pressure that makes breathing difficult. The air itself grows thick with moisture that hasn't yet decided to fall. Shamsiel attempts to read the patterns. He cannot. This weather system exceeds his comprehension. It operates according to rules he never learned, follows patterns that make no natural sense. How long? Someone asks him. How long until it begins? Shamsiel shakes his head. Days, maybe hours. The atmospheric pressure cannot sustain current levels much longer. When it breaks, he doesn't finish. He doesn't need to. You all understand. When it breaks, the deluge begins. When the pressure releases, the waters come. When the sky opens, everything ends. Noah's Ark is finished. You observe from distance as he leads animals up the ramp. 2 by 2, 7 by 7, an impossible parade of creatures entering the wooden vessel. Bears and birds, cattle and cats, insects and reptiles, every kind represented. The gathering takes days. Noah's neighbors continue mocking. They laugh at the procession. They ask if he plans to open a zoo inside his boat. They don't see the judgment approaching. They're too focused on the absurdity of present circumstances to notice the gathering catastrophe. You see it. You feel it. You know. On the final day of loading, Noah and his family enter the ark. 8 humans, stepping through the door. The last righteous ones, the remnant that will survive. Then Michael appears, visible even to your severed perception. He closes the door from outside, seals it with divine authority. Nothing will open that door until the appointed time. The mocking falls silent. The humans who gathered to laugh suddenly sense the terrible significance. They begin to disperse, hurrying toward homes and families. They know, finally, they feel the approaching end. Too late. Always too late. Your wife demands answers. She's noticed the preparations, the loading of the ark, the changes in the sky. She's not foolish. She's seen the signs. You tell her everything. Raphael's binding of Azazel, Gabriel's incitement of the Nephilim, Michael's preparation of Noah, the coming flood that will destroy all flesh. She doesn't weep. She doesn't rage. She simply stands silent, processing the magnitude of ending. How long do we have? She finally asks. You search the sky. The clouds roil with barely contained fury. The pressure has reached breaking point. Hours, you say. Maybe less. She nods, accepts. She's braver than you deserve. Your remaining children gather close. They're terrified. They feel death approaching like cold wind before storm. Their hybrid nature gives them enough spiritual sensitivity to perceive the judgment, but not enough angelic endurance to face it with dignity. They are caught between, as always, neither one thing nor the other. Wrong in their very existence. You hold them. Your monstrous, impossible children, the products of your violation, the evidence of your crime. You love them anyway. Futile and forbidden, though that love may be. The first drops begin to fall. The final glance back, rain touches your face. Simple water, ordinary precipitation. But you know what follows. This is not weather. This is weapon. The drops increase slowly at first. Individual splashes becoming steady, pattering, becoming downpour. Within an hour, the intensity exceeds any natural rain you've witnessed. Within 2 hours, it surpasses possibility. The water falls like divine fury made liquid. It hammers the earth with force that tears through vegetation, carves new channels in soil, overwhelms every drainage system the corrupted civilization built. Your family huddles in the compound's main structure. The children press against walls, away from windows where rain enters with violence. Your wife sits silent, watching water rise in the courtyard. You stand at the entrance, not quite inside, not quite out, caught between, as always. The other watchers emerge from their compounds. You sense them throughout the region, each standing in doorways or on elevated ground, watching judgment fall. No one runs, no one fights. What would be the point? You cannot flee water that covers the earth. You cannot battle rain that falls by divine command. Semjaza appears through the deluge. He's abandoned any pretense of authority. He stands before you, soaked, diminished, broken. "I'm sorry," he says. For what? For leading the descent? For proposing the oath? For choosing the path that brought you here? All of it, none of it. The apology is meaningless at this point. The consequences care nothing for regret. "We should have remained watchers," he continues. His voice barely carries over the rain's roar. "We should have kept our station, observed without interfering. We would still be home." Home. That word again. The place you can never return to. The connection that has been permanently severed. You look up, past the rain, past the clouds, toward the heaven you've been exiled from. The throne room you'll never again witness, the presence you'll never again feel. The sky shows no mercy, only water, endless water. The ground beneath your feet grows soft. The valley that held your paradise fills with rising flood. Water flows through your compound, entering structures built to last forever. It seeps through cracks, pools in corners, rises with inexorable patience. Your children cry out. They're trapped between walls as water enters their rooms. You wade through the rising flood to reach them. You're still strong enough, still angelic enough to lift them above the water's surface. But for how long? The rain doesn't stop. The water doesn't recede. In hours it will fill the valley completely. In days it will cover the mountains. Where will you go? What height remains unreached by judgment this complete? Your wife joins you. Together, you gather the children to the highest point of the compound. Water follows. It's at your ankles, then your knees, then your waist. The children cannot swim. Their massive bodies, designed for strength rather than buoyancy, sink like stone. You hold them above surface for as long as your strength allows. It's not enough. It will never be enough. The first child slips from your grasp. She goes under, thrashing, her weight pulling her down despite your efforts. You dive after her but cannot find her in the murky current. When you surface, another child has vanished. Your wife screams. She's trying to hold the remaining children, but the water has risen past her ability to stand. She struggles to keep her own head above surface. You make a choice. You let the children go. You focus on your wife. You pull her to the compound's roof, the last dry surface. The children's cries fade beneath the water's roar. This is your punishment, not the coming binding in darkness. That's merely imprisonment. This is the true consequence. Watching your loved ones drown while you survive, bearing witness to the destruction of everything you corrupted into existence. You and your wife cling to the roof. Around you, across the valley, similar scenes play out. Other watchers on rooftops or mountainsides, other human families being separated by rising water, other Nephilim children sinking beneath the flood. The civilization you built, structures and gardens and achievements, vanishes under the deluge. Everything you taught is being washed away. Every forbidden secret you shared is being erased. The earth is being cleansed. You are being purged. Your wife's grip weakens. The water has risen to the roof's edge. Soon it will cover this last refuge. She looks at you with eyes that hold no blame, only sadness, only love. "I would have chosen you anyway," she says. "Even knowing this would come." The statement breaks what remains of your heart. She loves you despite your corruption, despite your crime, despite the ending you brought upon her and her children. You don't deserve this love. You never did. The water takes her. One moment she's beside you, the next she's pulled under by current too strong for human resistance. You reach for her, you grasp only water. She's gone. You're alone on the roof. Alone in the flood. Alone in the judgment. The water continues rising. It covers the roof. You float for a time, using what remains of your angelic nature to resist drowning. But the rain doesn't stop. The flood doesn't crest. It rises and rises and rises until even the mountains are covered. Below you in the depths the earth cries. All flesh dies, humans and animals, Nephilim and natural creatures. Everything that breathes air drowns in divine wrath, except those in the ark. Somewhere, floating on this endless sea, Noah and his family survive. The righteous preserved, the future secured. You are not righteous, you have no future. The water rises past your ability to float. You sink beneath the surface. Your lungs, still partially flesh, demand air. Your mind, still partially angelic, resists the need for breath. The conflict is agony, drowning while unable to fully die, suffocating while unable to fully cease. This is temporary death. The real death, the binding in darkness, waits for when the waters recede. Raphael will return. He will find you. He will drag you to whatever place the Ancient of Days has prepared. You will join Azazel in darkness. You will wait there forever. The last thing you see before darkness comes is light from above. Filtered through water, filtered through judgment, distant and cold and unreachable. Heaven looks down on your ending. The Ancient of Days witnesses your fall. The throne room you abandoned continues its eternal song without you. You sink into darkness. The sentence has been served.